Chapter 45:15. This time, it was in Wushuang's turn to be startled. Lil, sister-in-law, said she didn't know Shi Jinbao in a resolute and decisive manner. It was clear that she really didn't have the slightest impression of Shi Jinbao. But judging from Shi Jinbao's appearance, it seemed like he had been greatly provoked by the little crown princess. It didn't seem like he hadn't interacted with her before. Arbor glanced at her husband in confusion. "What did you do? What did your husband do?" The crown prince blinked his phoenix eyes innocently at her to express goodwill. "I didn't do anything." "Then why did he look like he saw a ghost when he saw you just now?" Arbor pursed her lips in disdain. "You don't look like a decent person with fair skin and fair flesh." Everyone, by this time, that fifth elder of the Shi family had already gone up with a flushed face and brought back young Master Shi Jinbao, who was thrashing about in the sea, with 3 to 5 brawny men in tow. "Young master, young master." The fifth elder of the Shi family shouted louder and louder. When he saw that Shi Jinbao's eyes were still abnormally terrified as he desperately waved his hands, his voice became a bit shrill. "Let go of me, let go of me. Crown princess, spare me, crown princess, spare me." Everyone silently turned to look at the little crown princess. The little fellow was instantly enraged. She remembered very clearly that she had never seen this wastrel before. What did he mean by looking like she had harmed him? Did he think that the little crown princess had been wronged? When Emo Lien saw her wife rolling up her sleeves and looking like she wanted to go up and kick Shi Jinbao a few times, she couldn't help but raise her hand to cover her forehead. She hastily pulled the bouncing little stoic to her side and stroked her head placatingly. "Wife, ignore him. What's there to pay attention to a lunatic? He won't dirty your feet. Look at his weakling appearance. Why would I let him off? Who wants his lousy life?" The little stoic became angrier as she spoke. "I've long ignored that bunch of smelly bugs from the Shi family. Who is he putting on such an act for today? Who are you trying to malign?" She really did not expect that there would be a little white flower among men. Today, she was going to trample this little white flower to death. Let's see if he still pretended to be a weakling. What was he pretending to be in front of Miss Chiao? And Wushuang's lips twitched and she exchanged a look with third young Master Fu. Why not? Princess Wushuang had a strange premonition. She felt that Shi Jinbao, this little pitiful girl, must have been severely frightened by the young crown prince consort in the past. However, the tragedy was that the young crown prince consort had probably completely forgotten a minor character like him. But she didn't torture him back then. She must have tortured this young Master Shi until he went crazy every time he saw the crown princess. His expression would change on the spot. He had to admit that Princess Wushuang was right. The extent of young Master Shi's tragic state was really not to be underestimated. He still remembered that in the despondent pavilion, as one of the profligate sons, he didn't fear death and publicly took liberties with the crown princess. In the end, the little crown princess sent him flying into the sky with a fire explosion talisman. It was over, but this was not the end. It was only later that he found out that being blown up by the crown princess might not even be considered a big deal. The most frightening thing was that His Highness the Crown Prince ordered people to pack him up overnight and send him directly to a brothel, making him enjoy the life of a prostitute for 3 months. After he was released, young Master Shi could be said to have been completely crippled. Later on, whenever he saw a slightly stronger woman, he would uncontrollably shudder and scurry away like a rat. How could he still cause trouble for others? Chapter 45:16. One could only imagine how traumatized this incident was for little young Master Shi. Shi Jinbao had already noticed the presence of the crown prince and the crown princess at the entrance of the mystic realm. He had been hiding himself well in the crowd, trying his best not to show his face or make a sound in front of them. Little did he expect that this foolish elder of his would step out of the crowd to argue with the little crown princess and her entourage. Treasures or not, they were all worldly possessions. He would not bring them with him when he was born, and he would not bring them with him when he died. Right now, he only wanted to preserve his little life. Little young master, young master. Fifth elder was so angry that he could not care less about seniority. He slapped the back of Shi Jinbao's head to wake him up. Jin Bao shuddered from head to toe. When he noticed Crown Prince Mo's oppressive gaze, he seemed to have realized something and retreated a dozen steps. He shouted repeatedly, "I'll scram right now, scram right now. What are you all waiting for? Cut the crap and go back, go back." Jin Bao punched the fifth patriarch's shoulder and roared at the few Shi clan disciples. He kicked them into the back of the crowd. Mo Lien held onto Arbor. Otherwise, she would have gone up and kicked this crazy young master a few times. Was he a fucking retard? Sir Jojo did not have the time to bicker with him. Besides, was she that scary? He was so scared by her that he jumped into the sea. What was wrong with him? Second Sect Master. Second Sect Master. Hao Guang's excited voice came from behind. Everyone looked back and saw that old man, scattered light, sprinting toward Xiao Mu while flailing his arms and legs in joy. Just as he was about to pull her arm, Mo Lien, who was standing to the side, blocked him with one arm. The old man was not happy. He glared at Mo Lien and shouted, "Second Sect Master, it's great that you're fine. Your safe return is better than anything else. Second Sect Master. How are you? We're all fine. Those brats are in the karst cave, meditating and practicing qi every day. What can happen to them?" However, not long after you left, many old and weak women and children came to the island. I thought their ragged clothes were rather pitiful to wander about for so many days without a fixed abode, so I let them all stay. Since there are so many people on this deserted island, adding a few more people won't be a big problem. Oh. Arbor mercilessly ended the conversation. Scattered light. What was wrong with the second-generation sect leader? Didn't he spend a lot of effort to say such a long sentence? Why did he just reply with a no? Now that this matter is settled, I plan to settle the soldiers of the 3 prefectures here for the time being. Arbor nodded in satisfaction as he sensed the divine aura coming from all around him. Although this is just a deserted island, I feel that the divine power is quite dense. It's really not bad to use it as a training ground. That's good. There's a large open space behind the snow mountain. When the time comes, they can build houses and tents if they want. Let the group of soldiers make their own nest. Arbor nodded slightly. By the way, those people you mentioned, where are you going to settle them now? Whoosh whoosh. A few air-piercing sounds suddenly passed by. One of the arrows immediately pierced through the arm of an itinerant cultivator, causing half a howl. Mo Lien turned to look and saw a large number of murlocs crawling out of the sea. It's already 4 o'clock today. I'm having a headache. Chapter 45:17. Arbor's eyes immediately darkened, and his gaze locked onto the large group of mermen that swam ashore. These guys were all dressed in the same uniform. They were all wearing thin black armor woven from merman silk and carrying a long, large bow on their backs. In Arbor's eyes, they were no different from a large group of zombies that crawled ashore. He felt an inexplicable sense of panic. Swoosh, 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 arrows continuously shot toward the crowd. The leading merman had brownish-yellow eyes, and his roar shook the sky. Quick, bring them out immediately. Kill anyone who resists. Princess Wushuang frowned. It seems like these mermen aren't here for us? Arbor stared at them coldly. Regardless of why they're here, they can go to hell for daring to shoot arrows at this crown princess. Second faction master. Do you want to throw the godly power balls? Mi Guang suddenly took out a storage bag from his pocket and poured out a dozen godly power balls, stuffing them all at Arbor. Throw them, second faction master. Everyone, Senior Mi Guang really spared no effort to lead their second faction master down the crooked path of the fiery little stoic. If it doesn't work, we'll drop spirit artifacts. Mi Guang looked at his little faction master expectantly. Don't panic, second faction master. There are too many things that can be dropped. Just drop whatever you want. Arbor glanced at him and stared at him with his pitch-black eyes for a moment. He silently took a handful of godly power balls that the old man presented. He quickly flicked 3 of them with his fingers, and the godly power balls flew toward the group of mermen with a whoosh. Get out of the way! The merman leader shouted angrily. The mermaids and mermen instantly scattered in all directions. Some of the more timid ones even jumped into the sea to hide. After a few explosions, the seawater nearby was blasted into pieces of snow by the divine powerball, revealing a few large pits that were neither too deep nor too shallow. Several mermen who didn't have time to dodge were directly blasted into the sea. A merman hiding in the sea just wanted to poke his head out to see what was going on, but he was hit in the face by a body of a merman flying through the air. He immediately closed his eyes and fainted. Xiao Mu's pitch-black eyes stared at that merfolk leader as she raised both hands at the same time. The leader of the mermen was so scared that his soul almost flew out of his body. He hurriedly shouted, "Stop! Stop it!" Hao Guang lowered his head and rummaged through the storage bag. To be honest, ever since he was trapped in the Thousand Caves for a few months, Senior Fine Light had been obsessed with creating spatial equipment. These storage bags were big and small, and they were all made by him alone. There were many things in them. The great artifact maker, Senior Scattered Light, couldn't help but shed tears of sympathy for him when he thought of his own experience back then. Then he looked at himself from head to toe. Even in his sleeves, there were several storage bags. It couldn't get any better. There were many necessary items in the storage bag for tricking people. Senior Fine Light decided to take them all out for the little Supreme Leader to use. But the problem was, why did those mermen stop when the second Supreme Leader threw a few godly power balls over? Didn't the battle just start? Wasn't the tempo a little too fast? What a bunch of cowards! Senior Fine Light couldn't help but twitch his mouth and continue rummaging through the storage bag. Second Supreme Leader, don't argue with them. This guy had been spreading rumors in front of the little Supreme Leader. Chapter 45:18. Who told them to pretend to be big shots in front of us just now? Second Sect Master, continue blasting. Don't be polite with them. This light really wanted to see the world plunged into chaos. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal glanced at the old man speechlessly and said in a low voice, "Jojo, why don't we ask them why they're here?" He felt that this group of mermen didn't seem to have come to this deserted island for Jojo. And from the looks of it, these people didn't seem to recognize Jojo at all. "You humans, don't be too arrogant." The young merman in the lead had a handsome face and very fair skin. A trace of hatred flashed through his brown-yellow eyes. He comforted himself that he wasn't afraid of this little stoic who threw divine power balls at the team at the drop of a hat. He just didn't want his team to make unnecessary sacrifices. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. "So what if we're arrogant? What can you do about it?" A stinky salted fish was still a salted fish no matter how you flipped it. Xiao Mu's eyes turned extremely sinister in the blink of an eye. When the merman in the lead saw her frosty gaze, he couldn't help but shudder with apprehension. The little girl's aura didn't seem like an ordinary person. "I'm Haza, the commander of the royal guard of the mermen of the Forgotten River Dragon clan. Who are you humans, and why are you near our sacred land of the Snow Ridge?" "The sacred land of the Snow Ridge belongs to your family?" And Wu Shuang retorted exasperatedly. "We come and go as we please. What does it have to do with you?" Commander Haza glanced coldly at Wu Shuang. He gripped the large bow in his hand and said, "If you're guests of the Forgotten River, then please move to the Forgotten River clan's territory and register." Otherwise, Arbor didn't wait for him to finish speaking and threw out several divine power balls with her left hand. The surrounding itinerant cultivators, mercenaries, and aristocratic family disciples couldn't help but feel heartache. They thought, "Why don't you let this guy finish speaking first? We have to see if there's a chance to reconcile with them. There's no explanation now, and you're just blindly throwing divine powerballs. These aren't ordinary mystic powerballs. These are priceless divine powerballs. It was such a waste of resources. You simply don't know how to cherish it." Arbor didn't understand why the people around him looked so heartbroken, as if the sky was falling. Wasn't everything fine now? The situation was already under her control. The group of fishmen were repeatedly bombarded by the divine powerballs. They only dared to hide in the sea and did not dare to approach the shore. Why were they panicking? Mo Lien couldn't help but twitch her mouth. He silently admired the expression on his wife's face. He didn't even need to guess to know what the little fellow was thinking. She must be very speechless, thinking in her heart, Why are you panicking? I didn't even panic when I turned the tide. You guys are just hiding behind me, enjoying the scenery. What are you guys panicking for? When that group of fishmen charged forward, this Qiao would be in front of them to block them. He had no sense of responsibility at all. Did he even look like a mercenary? Did he even look like a man? You're simply throwing away the face of your parents. If I were your parents, I would use my shoe to whip you useless things to death. A bunch of weaklings, cowards, treasures, you guys are too weak. Arbor said expressionlessly. Such a small scene made you guys look like you're about to collapse. You're not manly at all. The itinerant cultivators and mercenaries were dumbfounded. Chapter 45:19. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal winked mockingly at Prince. Look, my Jojo is making fun of me again. Prince Mo threw him an expressionless emoji. The little stoic simply didn't understand why other people looked like they were about to collapse. The thoughts running through her mind right now were in a completely different world from everyone else's. She thought that other people were panicking and collapsing when they saw so many mermen. Who knew that other people were collapsing from heartache when they saw her throw the divine power balls? What are you panicking for? Arbor's gaze landed on that fat uncle from Defay mercenary group. Throw a few more divine power balls at them and have them all scram. The members of Defay mercenary group all revealed expressions of unbearable heartache as they watched the little girl throw away the remaining divine power balls with a wave of her hand. She threw them out so casually, completely not caring whether the divine power balls fell into the sea or caused serious damage to the mermen. She simply didn't care whether they hit anyone or not. Even if it was a bag of divine power balls she picked up for free, she couldn't waste it like this. Haza turned around in exasperation and looked at the scarlet surging to the surface of the water. Many of the mermen hiding in the sea were injured, and the bottom of the water was also dyed red. You humans, are you really going to stop us from going ashore? You want to become the enemy of our river of forgetfulness? We're already enemies. Arbor coldly interrupted Haza with an impatient expression. Scram back and tell your clan leader that I'm expropriating this empty, barren island. Since the River of Forgetfulness Dragon clan dares to trespass on this island, don't blame me for ruthlessly slaughtering you. Haza's face flushed red, as though he was very dissatisfied with Arbor's wanton and icy attitude. Who are you? Why are you so hostile to our River of Forgetfulness Merman clan? What a hothead. Arbor glanced at him coldly, and a bow made from twining wooden vines suddenly formed in his hand. A jade-green arrowhead abruptly appeared and coldly aimed at the other party. Haza! Haza's entire body trembled slightly, and he couldn't understand why a trace of panic would emerge in his heart. Suddenly he shouted, I am. It was the royal guard, Haza. What are you trying to do? What's wrong with you? Leader! The mermen who poked their heads out of the water all opened their eyes wide and roared in horror. Why aren't you running? Young Master Ding glanced at Haza with a faint smile. If you don't run now, you won't have a chance. Haza suddenly put down his pride and dignity and plunged into the sea. At the same time, Arbor released a wood spirit arrow, which pierced through the air and shot toward where Haza was standing. The arrowhead flew so fast that everyone could only see a dark green afterimage fly past their eyes. In an instant, it fell into the sea with a swoosh sound. Bang! A huge splash of water splashed out as divine power shot out in all directions. A stream of water spirit was smashed into fine powder, splashing onto the fleeing mermaids and mermen. But, blood-curdling screams came from all directions. Even though the group of mermen had already applied defensive artifacts on their bodies, they still felt pain all over their bodies from being smashed by the pearl-like water spirit. All the places that were hit by the water splashes were red and swollen at this moment. Little red dots appeared all over his body from the splashes of the water splashes, one after another. It was too fucking painful. Chapter 45:20. The mermen flopped about in the water, calling out to their leader Haza. Several timid mermen clutched their heads and scurried away like rats, howling miserably. Arbor put down the wood spirit bow in her hand, dispersing it into bits of divine power before finally gathering it back into her body. The little stoic pursed her lips tightly as she gazed coldly at the scattered mermen in front of her. Useless. Ha-za crawled out of the water with great difficulty and heard the little stoic's extremely emotionless, arrogant, and rude words. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He then looked down at his outer robe that was so tattered it looked like a beggar's outfit, and he was instantly enraged. Look at the good deed this stoic face did. He, the dignified commander of the Wang family's guards, was actually beaten into a drowning dog. This girl was truly indescribable. Commander, I see them. They're the remnants of Long Xinghua's group. A merman suddenly shouted in his ear. His voice was so loud that Ha-za couldn't help but furrow his brows. What were you shouting for? He wasn't blind, so he naturally saw Long Xinghua's group walking toward the beach with a handsome man and a beautiful woman. Xiao Mu naturally saw them as well, and she was momentarily taken aback. She felt that the old mermaid who was walking towards her seemed to have a familiar appearance. Before Arbor could take a closer look, she heard a soft call of, "Sister." A small figure dashed in front of her and bumped into her arms. Prince Mo swiftly picked up that pitch-black little thing. Resisting the urge to throw it away, he lowered his head to look at the child in his arms. At the age of 8, the child's original appearance couldn't be discerned from his pitch-black little face. Only his eyes were very bright. When he looked at him, his eyes were still glaring fiercely, as if he was very dissatisfied. This uncle who had jumped out of nowhere actually picked him up? Go away, go away. The child kicked his 2 short legs and struggled with all his might before opening his arms in Arbor's direction. Sister, sister. Arbor's brain, which had been disconnected from time to time, seemed perfectly normal now. She remembered. Weren't these people in front of her the members of the Dragon Clan's side branch that she had met once in Seikong Planet's 5 Moon City a few years ago? Granny Long Xinghua and her granddaughter Long Xianxian. Back then, she had just walked out of her seclusion, left the Holy Water sect, and went down the mountain to 5 Moon City. Coincidentally, 5 Moon City's Great Migration happened. Then he encountered Young He's dog slave, who used his power to bully others and captured a group of merfolk. She was attracted by Long Xianxian's eyes and couldn't help but lend a hand. She, who rarely meddled in other people's business, had always been very puzzled as to why she always wanted to meddle in other people's business. But it turned out that everything was intertwined. Back then, when she saw the holy water for the first time, it was attracted to the mermaid pearl in her body. As for Long Xianxian, this little girl, she had always felt that she was very close to her. For no reason, she wanted to get close to her. She was probably attracted by the 10,000-year mermaid pearl in her body. Arbor lowered her eyes, her expression almost cold. She had already fallen out with the merfolk, so she didn't know how she should face them. Sister. The little girl Long Xianxian was about to cry. Why did little sister's expression become so cold after not seeing her for only 2 to 3 years? Did she completely forget about them? The author was too busy these past 2 days. He would probably return to normal tomorrow. Chapter 45-21. Arbor silently glanced at her husband, using her eyes to signal for him to put down Long Xianxian. Sister. Long Xianxian's feet touched the ground, and she immediately bounced in front of Arbor. She suddenly lowered her head to look at her clothes, which were so dirty that their original color could not be discerned. The little girl's face was flushed with embarrassment, and she could not help but hesitate and stop in her tracks. Arbor glanced at her. You guys? She had wanted to ask why they were here, but felt that her question might not be too abrupt. Thinking about it, she was being too nosy. Since she could come here, why couldn't they come to this deserted island in the River of Forgetfulness when they were originally from the Dragon Clan's collateral branch? So she did not continue the conversation, and only glanced at Long Xianxian. At this time, Granny Long was leaning on a very old crutch. Her body was trembling as she walked forward. She bowed to Arbor. I did not expect to see my little benefactor here. This old one greets you. Arbor shook her head. Small things in the past are not worth mentioning. Granny, you are too polite. No need for formalities. A sincere smile appeared on Long Xinghua's wrinkled old face. Little benefactor, you are too modest. Arbor turned to look at Haza and the others in the sea, and her gaze once again fell on Long Xinghua's group. She asked hesitantly, "They are here to find you?" So the commander of the Wang family's guards really was not here to find trouble with her, Arbor. A trace of anger flashed across Long Xinghua's eyes, and she nodded heavily. "We have caused trouble for our little benefactor again." Arbor shook her head slightly. "It's no trouble. They are just some flies. I can just swat them to death." Everyone, she was naturally like this. If others spoke to her politely, she would naturally be polite. If they were to jump up and down at her from the start, her attitude would be 10,000 times worse. At this moment, Haza had already climbed out of the sea with his men, and water droplets hung on his mermaid's silk leather armor. Haza and the others looked furious. "Sirs, do you insist on meddling in this matter today?" Arbor glanced at them coldly and retorted without thinking, "If you're blind, then go find someone to treat you." Wasn't this obvious? Arbor was determined to take care of Granny Dragon's branch. Could it be that she was afraid of this bunch of bastards in front of her? Haza clenched his fists and roared, "These people were exiled to the lower star domain by our forgotten River Dragon clan. Now they actually dared to sneak back into the River of Forgetfulness. They are going against the will of our clan leader. Go back and tell Long Qian that Granny Long's team will be staying with us on this deserted island. We have the final say on when to leave." Arbor coldly interrupted Haza's words with an indifferent expression. "Also, tell her not to provoke me. My patience with the Forgotten River Dragon clan has run out. If you want to die, then come. Don't expect me to show you any mercy." Benevolence? Haza glared at the little stoic girl in front of him as if he had heard a joke. How was she benevolent? There were so many guards in the Wang family. A large number of them were injured, and a large number of them had fallen. Now, every one of them was more or less injured. Was this still considered benevolent? Are you sure you're not joking? Haza glared at Arbor for a few seconds with a furious expression. After a while, he said, "Just you wait." Chapter 45-22. Arbor raised his leg and kicked Haza's right leg. The latter staggered a few steps forward and almost fell into the sea again. Haza stumbled to the shore and didn't dare to look back. He only let out a whistle and led the Wang family's guards into the sea, battered and exhausted, to escape for their lives. Seeing their cowardly appearance, Rong and the others couldn't help but snicker. This was really a heroic wind blowing, and they were scrambling to escape. Arbor turned to look at Granny Long and the others. "Granny, I have something to ask you. Can we talk in private?" "Little benefactor, you're too polite. Ask whatever you want. This old one will tell you everything she knows." My Qiao's section break. "Greetings, madam." A young man came out and bowed to Mu Qingya. Mu Qingya nodded slightly with a cold expression. She tugged at the brocade cloak on her arm and glanced at the man. "I heard that Medicine Master Zeng used to be a clerk at Li City's rejuvenation medicine shop?" "Yes." Zeng Jingyang nodded and took a few steps back with his head lowered. "How's my daughter now?" "I've already treated Mrs. Wound with medicine. But Mrs. Injury is a bit serious, and she needs some time to recuperate," Zeng Jingyang said in a low voice. Mu Qingya glanced at him again and said, "Now you know who you're following." Zeng Jingyang looked indifferent and said in a low voice, "There are some things that I don't need to know too clearly. I only know that Miss gave me a chance to improve myself. Miss is my master who gave me a new lease on life." Mu Qingya nodded with satisfaction. "Okay, I understand. You can leave first." Zeng Jingyang didn't object and immediately left. Mu Qingya lifted the bed curtain and walked over to see her daughter half lying on the bed. She was holding a porcelain cup and looking at her with a smile. Mu Qingya's heart softened inexplicably. She walked to her daughter's bedside and sat down. She sighed and said, "You're too bold. Didn't I tell you not to provoke that person?" "Mother, you should be relieved now. I have a good eye for people." Mu Xiaoxue looked at her mother with a smile. "Zeng Jingyang is not a famous doctor, but given time, he will definitely become my right-hand man. He is indeed a good young man. Mu Qingya praised and held her daughter's soft hand. My daughter, you're too careless this time. I've already warned you that the Crown Prince Consort isn't an easy person to get along with. If you bump into her, just stay far away from her. Why do you have to go up and provoke her again and again? The smile on Mu Xiaoshue's face faded bit by bit, and there seemed to be ice shards dancing in her dark eyes. She suddenly slammed her fist on the bed. Why should I hide from her? She just wanted to find out what kind of person her mother kept talking about and praising was like. Who would have thought that she would be forced into such a situation? He recalled how he was like a masterless dog in that mystic realm, chased and beaten relentlessly by that ferocious expressionless man as if he was a dog driven into a dead end. Mu Xiaoxue couldn't hold back her anger and trembled in agitation. Mother. Chapter 45-23. Say, how can a person be so evil? Mu Xiaoxue clenched her fists and said coldly, how did I offend her? Why did she treat me like this? Mother, you don't know this, but in the mystic realm, she kept activating the teleportation talisman array and chased after us to beat us up. Speaking of this, Mu Xiaoxue could not help but shudder. She wanted to kill my mother. How can a person's hatred be so strange and sudden? The stoic face's terrifying intuition was too damn accurate. Why did she feel that she was related to Mu Qingya? There were very few people in the world who knew about the kinship between her and her mother. But why could that damned woman see through her so easily? Why did she have to say that she was similar to her mother? Mu Xiaoxue felt a cold wind seep into her pores, and she shuddered for no reason. Mother has fought with her no less than 10 times, Mu Qingya said indifferently. She's already very familiar with mother's tricks. It's nothing strange that she could recognize you at a glance. After all, you're my biological daughter. How can there not be any similarities between mother and daughter? Mu Qingya smiled and raised her hand to stroke her daughter's loose hair. Xiaoxue, your biggest mistake is that you shouldn't have taken the initiative to provoke her. Before you have absolute strength to crush the other party, you can find a shortcut. You can find another shortcut. For example, if you can secretly befriend her, you can give her a heavy blow at an unusual time in the future. Presumably, the effect would be better than falling out with her openly now. I didn't take the initiative to provoke her at all. Mu Qingya couldn't help but feel indignant when she thought of this. I just happened to want to test her a little. Who knew? Who knew that this woman was like a mad dog, biting whoever she caught? She simply hated this woman to death. She made her realize that under the absolute suppression of strength, she was as insignificant as a speck of dust in front of that person. Even if she died, she wouldn't be able to shake the world in the slightest. How could she be so insignificant and not have the slightest ability to retaliate? Mother, I want to become stronger. I don't want to be like this anymore, Mu Xiaoxue said angrily as she slammed the cotton cushion beneath her. Xiaoxue, what are you talking about? Mother, I know. You have a way to make me stronger. As soon as Mu Xiaoxue said this, Mu Qingya's face turned pale. Didn't I tell you not to mention this again? Mu Qingya's gentle expression changed and she reprimanded him sternly. Why won't you listen to your mother? Mother. Mu Xiaoxue gritted her teeth and clenched her fists. But I've had enough. I've had enough of being suppressed all the time. I'm not a stupid person. I just don't have enough talent. If I had talent like Xiao Mu's, I could have become a very outstanding cultivator long ago. Maybe they've already surpassed Arbor by now. Mu Qingya's body stiffened and her face turned pale. Xiaoxue, are you blaming your mother for not giving you a better innate condition than others? Mu Xiaoxue immediately realized that she had said something wrong. She quickly grabbed her mother's hand and whispered, Mother, that's not what I meant. Don't think too much. Chapter 45-24. Mu Qingya couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Indeed, I'm useless. If I could unlock my mystic meridians and have the talent for cultivation, you wouldn't be like me now and become an ordinary person. Mother, I really don't blame you. How can you say something like that? Mu Xiaoxue lowered her head and muttered softly, It makes me feel bad. Mother, don't we, Tianyan, Come here to break all the laws of heaven and earth and break the rules of the world? Mu Xiaoshue's eyes lit up again. She held her mother's hand tightly and said, "Mother, I know you have a way to make us stronger. Why don't you?" Mu Qingya suddenly covered her daughter's mouth and said, "I said, don't mention this again. Mother, I want to take the mutation pill." Mu Qingya pushed her daughter with trembling hands and said sternly, "I said don't mention this again." The first time her daughter said she wanted to take the mutation pill was more than 2 years ago. Mother and daughter rarely saw each other. 2 years ago, when her daughter saw her, she threw herself into her arms and cried. She must have suffered a lot in the City of Shadows. But thinking about it, the wife of the first city lord of the City of Shadows was not easy to deal with. That woman had given birth to a pair of children, so she must have never given Xiao Shui a good look. She was probably still bullying her in the dark. Therefore, Mu Xiaoxue had always wanted to become stronger. Every time he was ruthlessly crushed by someone, the desire to become stronger and crush them in reverse would grow rapidly in the wilderness in his heart like wild grass that could not be stopped at all. Mu Qingya knew her daughter too well. She was stubborn and competitive by nature and refused to admit defeat, even if she had been an ordinary person since birth. However, she never seemed to have the intention to stop cultivating. For so many years, no matter what method it was, even if it was unorthodox, as long as there was a chance for her to cultivate, she would secretly try it at least once. Mu Xiaoxue had always believed in her intuition. She was not stupid. She was a smart person and would not lose to anyone. Mother. Mu Xiaoxue wanted to persuade her mother again, but when she looked up, she saw that Mu Qingya had turned her head away with tears in her eyes. Mu Xiaoxue was stunned. Then she gently tugged at her mother's wrist. "Mother, I won't mention it again. Don't be sad." Taking the path of his mother was definitely not going to work. Could it be that the mutation pill had some side effects on the body, and that was why her mother was trying so hard to stop her from taking it? But if he didn't give it a try, how would he know if he would succeed? Outside the door, Mu Rochuan didn't know how long she had been standing there. The ship had always been anchored near the river of forgetfulness. 2 days ago, their mothers suddenly visited and boarded the ship. Both Yiler and Hong Chang felt very surprised. However, Mu Rochuan had long known that this was to be expected. Since his mother wanted to capture Arbor alive, it meant that she had other plans for Arbor. She wanted to capture him alive, not dead. This meant that her mother had a plan for Arbor, and Arbor was a target that could not be missed. Based on their current connections, it was impossible for them to do so. Therefore, Mu Rochuan was not surprised that Mu Qingya would come to take charge of the situation. But Chapter 45-25. She didn't expect that her sister, who was said to have died young, was still alive and well. The two of them were in the room, and their conversation was heard by Mu Rochuan. That's right, this is the true affection between mother and daughter, the deep affection between mother and daughter. Mu Rochuan's footsteps were a little weak as she stumbled back to her cabin and closed the door. She sat by the bed in a daze for a long time before suddenly reaching out to touch her cold face. Even she couldn't help but be shocked by this touch. Unknowingly, her face was covered in tears, and she didn't even know it. Compared to Mu Xiaoxue, Mu Rochuan's heart couldn't help but turn cold. Originally, she had always thought that it was because her mother's personality had always been cold, which was why she was so indifferent to her. Later, her mother took out a mutation pill with a cold face and let her swallow it. They were both this woman's children, but why was there such a difference in treatment? Mu Rochuan couldn't figure it out. Her expression was a little painful as she pressed her head down. Why was it like this? But how was she different from Mu Xiaoxue? Was it because Mu Xiaoxue was raised in the City of Shadows and became the young miss of the City of Shadows? Her mother looked at Mu Xiaoxue with eyes that contained something that she, Mu Rochuan, had yearned for a long time but had never obtained. A mother's kindness. On the deserted island, Arbor stepped on a thick layer of snow and walked with Granny Long for a while before stopping. "Who brought you here?" Long Xinghua couldn't help but be startled, and then she understood Arbor's question. Without an excellent space aircraft, very few people can cross the star-field sea when entering the Divine Continent. Countless people were lost in the sea of stars and never returned. Little benefactor, don't worry. Our branch of the Long family will definitely not repay kindness with enmity and betray you. Long Xinghua quickly expressed her position. Indeed, there was a mysterious person who gave us a ride. Long Xinghua frowned and said, although this old one doesn't know who the other party is, I don't think there's anything worth coveting on us poor people. Arbor glanced at her but didn't say anything. Long Xinghua smiled bitterly. If you don't trust us, then we can leave. We can leave. Arbor waved at her. There's no need for that. I'm just asking casually. Granny, you don't have to take it to heart, Arbor said indifferently. Long Xinghua sighed and revealed a bitter smile. Back then, we were exiled to the lower star field to live. However, survival was not easy, and life in the lower star domain was becoming increasingly difficult. By chance, we finally had the chance to sneak back and take a look. Who would have thought that even though they had returned, the clansmen wouldn't accept our branch family? We secretly returned to the River of Forgetfulness. We wanted to bring our children and grandchildren to see our homeland from afar. It was only because he missed his hometown too much. Xiao Mu suddenly opened her mouth, and a round, lustrous white shark pearl abruptly leaped into the air. Dense water energy spread out, and Granny Long's eyes widened in an instant. She hurriedly knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the mermaid pearl. Great Earth God, this is the mermaid pearl. This is a 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl. Now you should understand. Back then, when you looked at me, you always felt a sense of familiarity. It was because of the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl. Now, please tell me, what use does the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl have for you? Wake up and catch up on the latest chapters. Chapter 45-26. To be more precise, she was wondering what this millennium-old mermaid pearl could do to the merman. After thinking about it, she knew that it would definitely be useful. Otherwise, Long Qian wouldn't have insisted on giving it to her. For this pearl, Long Qian was willing to do anything to shed all pretense of cordiality with her. She was even willing to throw away her identity as her grandmother. What else was there that she couldn't throw away? Xiao Mu was well aware that to her, Long Qian was merely a clan leader of the Merfolk clan. Long Qian could be cold-blooded and serious when dealing with anyone, but she would never hold her granddaughter's hand and become her kind grandmother with a smile on her face. What I don't understand is why she wants this pearl so badly. Arbor said calmly. I have a feeling that she isn't like Bai Shuang, who is doing this out of selfishness. You are an elder of the merman. Granny, do you know the reason? Long Xinghua nodded. I know. Little benefactor, you might not know that the millennium-old mermaid pearl is something that is hard to come by. Now, it would be an exaggeration to say that only 1 in 10,000 mermen is able to produce a mermaid pearl. Most of the mermen wouldn't be able to produce a mermaid pearl that is more than 1,000 years old. After all, there is a limit to their lifespan. Arbor nodded and looked at the elder in front of her. She was no longer young. In fact, compared to 2 years ago, she was much older. Everyone would grow old, including these mermen. Time was generally fair to any race. Arbor lowered her eyes and said softly, So, this millennium-old mermaid pearl? It was passed down from the ancient times. It was nurtured and maintained by many generations of merman ancestors. It is the origin of the merman, and it is also known as the origin pearl. It had such an extraordinary origin. No wonder Long Qian and the others were so passionate when they saw this millennium-old mermaid pearl. Arbor swallowed the pearl and looked at the elder calmly, waiting for her to continue. The baptism of the mermaid pearl is extremely powerful. Not only will our clansmen who have been baptized by the mermaid pearls gain the power to transform freely, all mermen who have been bathed in the light of the mermaid pearls will reach a new level in their cultivation. In other words, it can at least guarantee the advancement of a major realm. Long Xinghua nodded. Yes, everything. You've been with the merfolk for so long, you should have noticed. The mermen of this generation can be said to be almost useless in water when they are in human form. They can only roam freely in the sea after transforming into their merman form. This only means one thing. The power of the Jiao Pearl's baptism is already starting to fade. They need to bathe in the light of the mermaid pearl again. If the baptism is not carried out in time, it will be extremely detrimental to the future development of the merfolk race. It might even affect the growth of the next generation. For example, newborn mermaids might not be able to transform into human form. Or perhaps, the talent of each generation will decline, and each generation will be worse than the last. Under such circumstances, the merfolk race has no future. The patriarch will naturally be anxious. Can the seal on the mermaid pearl only be completely unsealed when I'm 16 years old? Arbor asked coldly. She thought that she should know the reason now. Why did Long Qian, who had not cared about her for so many years, suddenly want her to return to the river of forgetfulness? Chapter 45-27. Long Xinghua was stunned and shook her head. I can't be sure about that. I have never heard of the mermaid pearl being sealed in a person's body, and it takes 16 years to open. Furthermore, the woman looked at Arbor with hesitation. The battle at the River of Forgetfulness caused the mermen to suffer heavy losses. The young master, Long Chuyu, was severely injured. The mermen have been hiding in the River of Forgetfulness for 10 years. Perhaps the patriarch didn't forget about our little benefactor. Do you believe it? Granny Long was stunned. Xiao Mu gazed at Long Xinghua gravely. Do you believe your own explanation? I didn't know that our little benefactor had a relationship with the dragon family of forgetfulness. Long Chuyun is my mother. Long Xinghua was completely shocked. Her eyes widened, and her hands trembled as she held onto her cane. You are? The daughter of the young mistress? The daughter of the young mistress of the dragon family of forgetfulness was exiled to the lower star field. What was the reason? What is going on? Long Xinghua held onto her cane and took a few shaky steps forward. Little benefactor. I fought my way out of the river of forgetfulness and fell out with the patriarch of the mermen, Arbor said with a cold gaze. But, if our little benefactor is the daughter of the young mistress, then shouldn't the patriarch be your grandfather? Arbor slowly walked towards a protruding rock. With a light tap, he floated up. Perhaps it's not that the seal can only be opened after 16 years. Perhaps the dragon family of forgetfulness has a special method to detect the movement of the pearl. Long Xinghua couldn't keep up with the young lady's thoughts, but she nodded subconsciously. That's possible. As the seal of the mermaid's pearl slowly loosened in my body, Long Qian must have noticed it. That's why she was so anxious to summon me back to the river of forgetfulness. The mermaid pearl can only be taken out of my body after the seal is broken. From the very beginning, all these people wanted was this 10,000-year-old shark pearl. Mu Qingya was the same. Arbor did not know where Mu Qingya got this information from. To think that Mu Qingya guessed that the 10,000-year-old Jiao pearl was in her body in her previous life. The funniest thing in the world was that in her previous life, she didn't even understand what was going on until she died. In Xiao Chen's previous life, the seal on this 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl had not been completely broken. That was why the forgetful river dragon clan had never looked for her even after her death. This was because Long Qian didn't sense the aura of the mermaid pearl being unsealed until the day she died in her previous life. At that time, she was simply too insignificant. Her existence was so weak that no one would notice it. Her grandmother had never appeared by her side from the beginning to the end. Was it because he was weak? Therefore, there was no need to bring it back. She felt that her speculation this time should be the complete truth. Perhaps it was because the mermaid pearl was useless before the seal was broken that Mu Qingya locked it up. He wanted to help her by studying her conscious in order to further understand the secrets hidden in her body. He would lock her up and control her life. When the time came, he would be able to cut her open without any hindrance. Arbor suddenly smiled. She suddenly realized that perhaps from her previous life until now, her grandmother's family had never thought of looking for her. Chapter 45-28. Long Xinghua looked back at Arbor and suddenly said, Little miss, maybe you misunderstood. The clan leader she definitely doesn't know. If she knew that you had the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl in your body, She would definitely go to the lower star region to find you and bring you back. Long Xinghua suddenly didn't know what to say to comfort her. She felt like she was saying that the clan leader would definitely bring you back to the river of forgetfulness for the sake of the mermaid pearl. You're right. She doesn't know at all. Maybe she doesn't even want to know about my existence. She recently sensed that the mermaid pearl's power was about to break through the seal, so she sent someone to contact me. If I was like before, a pitiful little girl who was at the mercy of others, then I wouldn't receive any pity or attention from her in this life. The most interesting thing is that I really died in my previous life. I died without a corpse, and I didn't even know about my background. No. Long Xinghua stuttered and still wanted to comfort her. You're the clan leader's granddaughter after all. If she knew that you were in the lower star region, of course she doesn't know. Arbor interrupted Long Xinghua's words. Because the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl in my body was sealed by my mother. From the beginning to the end, the dragon clan leader only had her eyes on the mermaid pearl. She didn't care about my life or death. She also didn't care about my mother's life or death. So when she received the news of my mother's death back then, she probably only said, "Oh. That? What a rebellious daughter." She didn't even want to hand over the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl before she died. She even gave me such a headache after she died. Guess how many people she sent out to find the mermaid pearl's whereabouts after so many years? Arbor suddenly laughed maniacally. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny? My mother and I combined can't even compare to one 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl. Little Mississippi, Long Xinghua's eyes reddened as she trembled and took a few steps forward. Before this, I still had a little hope. After this, there's nothing. I don't know how my mother felt when she sealed the 10,000-year-old shark pearl in my body. I don't know how she felt, waiting for death in that secret realm all by herself. But you know what? Every time I think of this, my heart aches unbearably, and my tears wet my face. This is the 10,000-year shark pearl. It's a memento that my mother left me. Xiao Mu turned to look at Long Xinghua and said softly, "I won't return it. If they want to snatch it, I'd rather destroy it than give it to them. It doesn't matter who comes." The little stoic gnashed her teeth and glared at Long Xinghua icily. "Mother-in-law, don't disappoint me." Long Xinghua suddenly knelt down and kowtowed twice. "I don't dare to deceive little Mississippi. I really don't know who the mysterious man is. But I can vaguely guess that it should be someone from Tianyun's side. The mysterious man used us as bait and deliberately sent us to the deserted island to approach you. But don't worry. From the very beginning, this old one had never thought of harming little Mississippi. After drifting outside for a long time, I especially want to return to the place where I grew up when I think about how I'm not far from death. I've already reached the end of my lifespan. It's already a great blessing to be able to see little Miss before I die." Long Xinghua kowtowed again. When she raised her head, her eyes were resolute. Chapter 45-29. This old one was right to conceal the truth before. This is disloyalty to my benefactor and injustice to little Mississippi. This old one asks for the death penalty. I hope little Miss will grant my wish. After saying this, she moved her fingers, and a steel spike appeared in her palm. She resolutely stabbed it towards her chest. Arbor had been staring at her for a long time. When he saw her move, he waved his hand and heavily swatted away that steel spike. "I don't need you to die. It's fine as long as you speak the truth." Arbor looked at her coldly. "Not only can you not die, you also have to help me do something." Long Xinghua stared at him, spellbound. For a split second, it was as if she saw that woman in red with crisp laughter. If all Seer's people come to find you, continue to feign civility with them. She wanted to follow the clues and beat them to death, this bunch of stinky gutter rats. The poison in you and Xianxian's bodies isn't hard to cure. It just needs a certain amount of time. Do you understand what I mean? Long Xinghua instantly widened her eyes. So, the little stoic actually clearly knew that they might be under someone's control and that there was something wrong with them? So her probing inquiry earlier wasn't a test at all. She really suspected, I like honest people. The little stoic threw down this sentence coldly before turning around to walk in the direction of Mo Lien and the others. Crown Prince Mo couldn't restrain himself from running over to find his wife several times. Everyone had exceptional hearing. Even though they were far away, they had already heard the little stoic and Long Xinghua's conversation clearly. However, because the two were discussing the Long clan's private affairs, they didn't feel it was appropriate to disturb them. Seeing the little stoic running over by herself, Prince Mo hastily went up to her and pulled her into his embrace. He lowered his head to look at the little fellow's face and said with a frown, "Jojo is crying." "Who's crying?" The little stoic cast him a stubborn glance with a taut face. Prince Mo was silent for a moment before suddenly lowering his head to kiss her forehead. "Alright, Jojo, you must be tired after a long day." He winked at her. "Let's find a place to rest first. We'll talk about it tomorrow." Arbor nodded knowingly. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal hurriedly ran after the two of them. What kind of joke was this? Jojo and Mo Lien were definitely trying to sneak back to the galaxy to wash up and rest. If he didn't run with them now, when would he? Was he really going to be a savage on this deserted island? The three of them ran to the snow region at the back of the mountain. They randomly found a cold cave and ran in. The little stoic set up a formation at the cave entrance and also set up an illusion talisman matrix to fool people. She then turned around and pulled Mo Lien and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal back to the star domain. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal happily hugged the jug of wine and ran to the forest planet to find a hot spring to soak in. Arbor pulled Mo Lien back to the Longevity Temple on the main planet. They flew directly to the bedchamber on the top floor. Prince Mo scooped up his wifey, kicked open the door, and kissed her. Sir Jojo extended a fist and smacked the back of his head without holding back. "But, it hurts." Prince Mo rubbed against her head and hugged her before plunging into the spacious bathtub behind them. The sound of splashing water followed, and he could faintly hear the little stoic's unhappy mumbling. "Jojo, what are you mumbling about? You said before that husband and wife should pay particular attention to the way of yin and yang harmony." Chapter 45-30. But, no buts. What you said, could it be you still want to deny it? He crawled out of the water and pressed her against the edge of the pool with a grin. He propped up his chin with one hand, and his slender body pressed close to hers. Sir Jojo reflexively shifted her head back, and her beady black eyes roamed around restlessly. Her gaze landed on his face that was so close to hers, and her almond-shaped eyes couldn't help but brighten. Hubby's appearance was seriously really unbearable to look at. She saw him pursing his lips slightly, his phoenix eyes glinting, and his half-wet long hair hanging loose and sticking to his cheeks. The little stoic suddenly stretched out her small paws, and her soft body also pressed against him. She clung to his body and rubbed against him. Mo Lien chuckled deeply and wrapped his arms around her slender waist. He whispered into her ear, "Jojo, today, everything is completely different from the past. Remember," he softly rubbed against her neck. "No matter where you go, I will always be with you. Don't worry and don't be afraid. In the future, you won't be alone anymore." Xiao Mu hugged his neck in return, and she felt her eyes brimming with an unbearable sourness. She nodded lightly and snuggled into his warm embrace. At this moment, she felt that time was tranquil and beautiful. The palace's warm fragrance intoxicated her, and her heart was indescribably calm. "Mother, I want to go see senior brother and the others." Mu Xiaoxue gently lowered her eyes. Her white robes made her figure appear even thinner, like a willow branch swaying in the wind. Mu Qingya looked at her daughter and nodded with a smile. "That's fine, go persuade them." "Hall Master." He opened the cabin door and quickly entered. She bowed. "Hall Master Gong, Vice Hall Master Meng, and the others have all arrived. Quickly invite them in." Mu Qingya smiled gently and turned to look at her daughter. "Xiaoxue, you go first." "Yes, mother." Mu Xiaoxue nodded slightly and turned to follow her out. When she came out of the cabin and walked to the deck, she saw a group of 10 men walking slowly towards her. Some were flirtatious, some were elegant, some were cold, and some were lazy. These 10 people had beautiful eyes and could be said to be peerless in their generation. Each of them had their own merits. Mu Xiaoxue was stunned for a moment, and her footsteps paused. These people were actually all from the heavenly fate? Mu Xiaoxue brushed past the 10 people and couldn't help but turn back to take another look. One of the men, who was dressed in red, suddenly turned his head and winked at her as if he was shooting electricity at her. Mu Xiaoxue shuddered and felt that her legs were weak. Hong Chang, who was following behind her, quickly reached out to help her up. "Miss? No, I'm fine." Mu Xiaoxue knew that she had been tricked. She blushed and left in a hurry. A chuckle came from behind, followed by a man's clear voice. "Red, don't use your charm on people casually." Okay, I just wanted to try and see if my charm didn't work. It turns out that it doesn't. It just varies from person to person." A gentle voice with a hint of playfulness slowly rose. "How many people do you think there are in this world who don't know how to flirt? Yes, it's so annoying." Chapter 45-31. Hong Chang turned back and glared at them angrily. Who led them to Mu Qingya, also slowly turned back and said lightly, "Please don't go too far. Miss Mu is the daughter of our hall master." Okay, I'm just kidding." The man in red waved his hand with a smile and said lightly, "Don't be so serious." Er's face was sullen. She silently frowned and led them to the cabin. Standing at the door of the cabin, stopped. "Please, the hall master is waiting for you inside." Gong Song Feng's pitch-black eyes glanced at the woman indifferently. Without saying a word, he walked into the cabin. The beautiful man in red giggled. Then his silhouette flashed, and he took a step forward to squeeze in. "Hall Master Mu, do you have any good countermeasures? Your ship has been docked in the River of Forgetfulness for almost half a month, right? Where is the entrance to the River of Forgetfulness?" "The entrance to the River of Forgetfulness is far away but close at hand," Mu Qingya said softly and raised her hand to wave her sleeve. "Serve the tea." "Oh." The man in red casually picked a seat and sat down. He blinked innocently. "So, the entrance to the River of Forgetfulness is under the deep sea? You've been staying at someone else's door for so long. Hasn't anyone come to find you?" Mu Qingya smiled. The leader of the Dragon Clan of Forgetfulness seems to be very patient. He really hasn't come to find me. Hall Master Gong, I wonder why so many brothers of the Underground Hall have come to visit. I heard that you want to catch her alive? Gong Songfeng gently raised his hand and pushed away the teacup handed to him by the maid. Everyone knows what you've boasted about in the organization. If this news spreads out, how do you think that person from the Divine Land will deal with you? If they want to deal with me, of course, they have to find me first. Mu Qingya smiled and fiddled with her slender fingers. Is Hall Master Gong's trip for this? Yes. Did the people of the Hidden Moon Hall come to find you before? Mu Qingya shrugged. This I don't know. This Hall Master has only arrived a few days earlier than all of you. Everything that happened before was handled by my subordinates. Did they offend you in any way? That's really I hope you can forgive me. However, the ignorant are not guilty. I believe that Hall Master Gong will not bicker with them, right? Gong Songfeng stared coldly at the woman in front of him. What's the matter with the Hidden Moon Halls not wild? Who allowed him to act alone? Who gave him the guts to run off alone to alert the enemy and catch them? Who can he possibly catch? Has the Hidden Moon Hall's Vice Hall Master been here? Oh, wait a moment. Mu Qingya pretended to turn her head and said to he, Go and invite eldest miss over. Yes. Who are those people? Mu Xiaoxue stood by the railing and heaved a sigh of relief. Her wildly beating heart finally calmed down. Her little face was still slightly red at this moment. That red-clothed man's charming technique was too seductive. Just a slight glance and a chuckle could make people's legs go soft. Hong Chang said in a deep voice, They should be the elites of the Underground Hall's Hall Master Gong. I've never heard Mother mention it before. Mu Xiaoxue said softly. In our sect, there are the flying sky burrowing earth picking stars, hidden moon chasing sun, and 6 branches of the charm hall. Chapter 45-32. We don't usually interact with each other. At most, we'll go out on missions and cooperate with each other occasionally. Hong Chang said in a deep voice, the 6 hall masters all work for their own masters and are always divided at heart. It's not like Miss doesn't know this. That's true. Mu Xiaoxue sighed softly. I wonder what Mother is talking about with them. Should we ask Elder Zhuang to go over and take a look? Don't worry, Miss. We have people secretly protecting the hall masters. Although the underground hall doesn't get along with us, they won't make a move here. If they make a move in the open, they'll be punished according to the sect rules. That's true. Mu Xiaoxue nodded softly and turned around slowly, her gaze slightly focused. They saw a woman in a green dress walk past them. She didn't look at them, and her footsteps didn't stop. Elder sister. Mu Xiaoxue followed 2 steps forward and slightly bent her knees to give Mu Roxuan a standard greeting. Mu Roxuan's body stiffened slightly and her footsteps also paused. She didn't turn around and only lightly nodded with her back facing Mu Xiaoxue. Seeing that she didn't turn around and was about to leave, Mu Xiaoxue hurriedly followed a few steps forward and said softly, Elder sister, are you going to Mother's place? The underground hall master, vice hall master and several other guests are at Mother's place. I'm afraid it won't be that convenient. Mu Roxuan's voice was calm and flat. Mother is calling me over. Excuse me. Hong Chang, does elder sister not like me? Even after walking far away, Mu Roxuan could still hear Mu Xiaoxue's soft and gentle voice, like fine willow catkins, drifting with the wind. How can that be? Miss is gentle and beautiful and is so sensible. Eldest Miss is probably a little unused to it. Yes, elder sister didn't even know of my existence before. But I've always known that she's my elder sister. I really have been looking forward to meeting her since I was young. Mu Roxuan quickened her pace, almost running away. Why did she run away? Mu Roxuan questioned herself again and again in her heart. Was it because of that uncontrollable jealousy? When she saw the slender and elegant girl in front of her, she actually felt a trace of inferiority. Her younger sister, a sister she had never seen before. It actually made her feel inferior, jealous, and other ugly emotions. She didn't know what kind of emotions she should have and what kind of face she should have when facing this beautiful girl in front of her. One of them was a young lady that was held in the palm of her mother's hand, and she grew up with warm maternal love. She was pure and innocent, and her eyes were filled with the brilliance of flowers. One was a daughter who was despised by her parents and left to her own devices. Her heart was filled with bitterness, and everything she saw and heard was darkness. Now, the reason why her mother kept her by her side was not because she was her daughter, but because she still had the strength to do things for her mother. What if there came a day when she was completely useless? Then perhaps he would be completely abandoned. Hall Master, eldest Miss is here. He looked curiously at eldest Miss's pale face, wondering why she was here. Come in, Mu Qingya said faintly. Mu Roxuan took a deep breath and walked into the cabin with her head lowered. She looked straight ahead and bowed. Mother. Roxuan, come and sit. These people are Underground Hall's Hall Master Gong, Vice Hall Master Meng, and the other elites. Chapter 45-33. Explain to them what happened to Bai. Tell them what happened to Bai. Mu Roxuan raised her head and glanced over. The man in front of her had a cold, jade-like face and an outstanding temperament. The young man sitting next to him had a much gentler gaze and was equally outstanding. Hall Master Gong. Mu Qingya pointed at the cold-faced man and then pointed at the young man next to him. Vice Hall Master Meng. Mu Roxuan cupped her fists and bowed in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. She recounted how Bai came to her for cooperation and how he led his men to set up an ambush on Fisherman's Island. Mu Roxuan didn't panic and said calmly, I tried to persuade him before, but I am not a member of Hidden Moon Hall, so I can't interfere with Vice Hall Master's affairs. Vice Hall Master Bai insisted on going, so I couldn't stop him. Mu Qingya smiled faintly and criticized, You child, Hall Master Gong and Vice Hall Master Meng aren't blaming you. It's fine as long as you explain the situation clearly and everyone understands the situation. Mu Rochuan nodded slightly and moved her lips, but she still took a few steps back. Finish your words, Gong Songfeng said coldly. Mu Rochuan lowered her head and said in a low voice, I only have a guess, and it may not be comprehensive. If you have any guesses, just say it. Hall Master Gong, my daughter is inexperienced. I see that your daughter is very smart. Let her finish. Gong Songfeng interrupted Mu Qingya and turned to look at Mu Rochuan. What do you think? Let's hear it. I feel that Vice Hall Master Bai should be here on orders. Hidden Moon Hall and Arbor have. Mu Qingya frowned and interrupted her. Don't say things you don't have any evidence to back them up. Yes, I know I was wrong. Mu Rochuan took a few steps back and lowered her head in silence. Fan Meng couldn't help but sneer and say softly, I think Miss Mu is right. It was indeed that person from Hidden Moon Hall who acted on his own initiative. And you, Hall Master Mu, if you don't want to follow in the footsteps of Vice Hall Master Bai, I advise you to stop. Thank you for your kindness, Vice Hall Master Meng. Mu Qingya smiled. I know very well what I'm doing. Heh. Fan Meng suddenly stood up, turned her head and nodded slightly at Gong Songfeng, and then walked out. Fan Meng. Fan Yu hurriedly stood up and followed after her. The red-clothed man and the yellow-clothed man beside him looked at each other and then shrugged helplessly. Sai, what should we do? Hall Master Mu wants to capture her alive, but the little stoic really isn't as easy to deal with as you think. Hong Yi stood up with a grin. And if Hall Master Mu makes a rash move and ruins our plan, it won't be good. Mu Qingya smiled and said, let's rely on our own abilities. Whether we can succeed or not depends on God's will. Heaven's will? Do you think she won't know that you planted someone by her side? Mu Qingya's face, which had been smiling since the beginning, suddenly froze. She looked up at the handsome man in red and her eyes darkened. You know, someone from Underground Hall actually knew of her plan? How was that possible? Chapter 45-34. Who doesn't know what you did so obviously? Do you think that little girl is a fool? This move of yours seems to have inadvertently arranged for someone to be sent over. The problem is, what can that group of old, weak women and children do? Have you forgotten how many transcendent God realm experts are by the little stoic side? You want to capture the little girl from the hands of this group of people without anyone noticing? With that group of old, weak women and children? Are you naive or are we naive? Your Excellency doesn't need to worry. I naturally have my ways. Mu Qingya coldly interrupted Red Robe and said aloofly. Withdraw your men. Don't alert the enemy, Gong Songfeng said coldly. Heh. Mu Qingya couldn't resist chuckling and said in a clear voice, that's right. I've always heard Chasing Sun Hall's Vice Hall Master Gui ramble on about how the Burrowing Hall's Hall Master and Vice Hall Master are very friendly with that little stoic. I always thought that I heard wrong. Now that I see it today, I know it's true. Mu Qingya said with a smile, everyone was merciful in the previous pursuit. If it weren't for your incompetence, why would my flying heaven need to intervene in this matter? My master wants you to give up on this matter. Mu Qingya's expression changed slightly, and she coldly met Hall Master Gong's pitch-black eyes. The people who disobeyed my master last time don't even have corpses left. Mu Qingya, Madam Mu, do you want to try our master's fury? Mu Qingya met his gaze and was defeated in a second. She suddenly smiled like a flower and nodded. Since it's master's intention, of course I can only obey. Don't do those meaningless things for now. Our first task is to find a few bases and build them as soon as possible. The attack on Devastating Island last time failed in the end. The entire island sank, so how could they build a base? If you have a good suggestion, there's no harm in bringing it up. Mu Qingya's lips twitched with a fake smile. I think Wangchuan is good in every way. Hall Master Gong, find an island nearby and settle our people down. What do you think of the Wangchuan Dragon Clan's land? Mu Qingya's eyes widened in astonishment. She abruptly looked at Hall Master Gong and asked, You want to? Gong Songfeng smiled faintly. Tomorrow, find someone to send an invitation. I want to meet the Dragon Clan's clan leader personally. Mu Qingya couldn't help but sneer. Hallmaster Gong, wouldn't this be? You have a problem with it? I have no objections. However, with our current manpower, isn't it a little too much to attack the Wangchuan Dragon Clan directly? I'm just trying to get in touch with him. I don't mean anything else. It can't be your master's idea again, right? Yes, so what? Mu Qingya laughed awkwardly. Could it be because? What are you guessing? Gong Songfeng interrupted her gently. I advise you to think carefully before you speak. All right then. Tomorrow, I'll have Roshuan send a letter to the Wangchuan Dragon Clan. Thank you, Hallmaster Mu. Gong Songfeng nodded elegantly. He got up and walked out with the group of people. Then I'll wait for the good news. He stared at the group of people leaving and couldn't help but frown. She clenched her fists and said angrily in a low voice, Hallmaster, why didn't they send the letter themselves? Chapter 45-35. Mu Qingya stared at the backs of Gong Songfeng and the others. After a long time, she looked back and glanced at He who was filled with righteous indignation. The strength of the underground hall is not something we can compare to. Since Hall Master Gong suddenly came here, he was bound to take over all the affairs of the heavenly providence. Mu Qingya's eyes dimmed slightly. As if thinking of something, she turned her head and looked coldly in Mu Roshuan's direction. Why did you make the decision and talk about the Hidden Moon Hall just now? The matters of the Hidden Moon Hall are not something you and I can manage. Mu Qingya looked coldly at her daughter in front of her. Do you understand? I didn't leave you here to cause trouble for Flying Paradise. In the future, don't interfere with anything that happens in other halls, and don't talk nonsense in front of others. Mu Roshuan clenched her hands on the side of her skirt and said in a low voice with her head lowered. Mu Qingya took a deep breath and let it out again. As such, she seemed to be in a better mood, and her expressions softened a little. She deliberately put on a kind face and said softly, Roshuan, Mother relies on you a lot, and is very optimistic about your future. No matter what you do in the future, you have to know the severity and propriety. Mother is giving you advice. Do you understand? Well, there's nothing else. You can go out first. Prepare to go to the Forgotten Chuan Dragon Clan to deliver the visiting card. You've been there once before, so you should be familiar with the place. There shouldn't be any problems. Mu Roshuan pursed her lips, turned around stiffly, and walked straight out. In fact, she wanted to say to her mother, why can't you send someone else? Could it be that only she, Mu Roshuan, could experience dangerous things? Now that she had completely lost her cultivation, she was also a cripple. Wasn't she no different from Mu Xiaoxue? In fact, she didn't need this kind of reliance and use. What she wanted was actually very simple. If her mother could treat her with half the gentleness and kindness that Mu Qingya gave her, she would be satisfied. Instead of speaking to his daughter in a businesslike tone like he did now. Every time they met, it seemed that other than assigning missions and discussing official matters, there was nothing else. Glanced at Mu Roshuan's departing figure and frowned slightly. Hallmaster, treating eldest miss like this, will she, what? Mu Qingya looked at He in confusion. Haven't I treated this daughter well? He had left such an important matter to her. If she has the ability, she can do a few more things, and her position in the heavenly fate rankings will rise. He was a little speechless. She kept her mouth shut and lowered her head. She didn't know if the hall master really didn't understand or if he was faking it, but the expression on eldest Mrs. face when she went out just now didn't look like a very happy expression. As an outsider, I felt sorry for this young miss. The hall master was really ruthless. He could actually do such a thing to his own daughter. Sending an invitation to the Forgotten River Dragon Clan was an arduous and unrewarding task. Last time, when the young miss had led them into the Dragon Clan's territory, they had almost been severely injured. Would those mermaids be so polite to the people of the heavenly fate rankings? Shook her head and silently glanced at the hallmaster. Seeing her turn and walk out, she followed. Where is the hallmaster going? To see Xiao Shui. Chapter 45-36. I don't know if her persuasion went well in the lower cabin. He lowered her head and said against her will, Miss Moo is very smart and quick-witted. She has always been on good terms with her fellow disciples. There shouldn't be any problems. Mu Qingya's eyes curved into crescents when she heard her praise her daughter like this. She seemed to be in a very good mood and had completely forgotten about the suffocation she had suffered at Gong Songfeng's place. Yes, my daughter has always been very smart and quick-witted. She nodded with a smile and turned to walk out. Felt a little strange. She always felt that Madame's attitude towards these two daughters was too different. Could it be that Miss Moo was actually not Madame's biological daughter and was adopted? At this time, in the lower cabin, Zhao Yi hurriedly pulled Mu Xiaoxue, who had almost collapsed to the ground, into his arms and glared at the woman who was pressed to the ground. He shouted angrily, Lin Miao, is there something wrong with your brain? What's wrong with you? You actually hit my junior sister. Zhao Yi, you big idiot. I think you're the one who's sick in the head. Lin Miao's arms were unceremoniously restrained by two soaring heaven disciples and she was pressed to the ground. She couldn't help but raise her head and shout, I'll ask you one thing. Do you know what that little bitch said just now? Meow, meow. Lin Zhenner hurriedly pulled her younger sister's hand. Don't talk about meow. Less than half the time for an incense stick to burn earlier, little junior sister had suddenly walked gracefully into the cabin and looked at them with an apologetic expression before she said in a weak and pitiful manner, Senior brothers and senior sisters, at this point in time, there's something that I have to be honest with all of you. My mother is the hall master of the soaring heaven of Tianyun. Everyone looked at her in shock. The disciples of the City of Shadows simply couldn't believe their ears. Little junior sister actually said that she was the daughter of some hall master of the soaring heaven of Tianyun? Then, didn't that mean that their first city lord Mu Jinghong had an affair with the hall master of the soaring heaven hall? Senior brother, please forgive me for hiding many things from you before. Forgive my ass. Lin Miao immediately exploded in anger. How dare Mu Xiaoxue continue to act like a delicate and helpless little white flower in front of them? It was as if the people who had locked them up in the lower deck weren't from Tianyun. Sorry, everyone. Mu Xiaoxue could not hide her sadness as she said to them, I didn't mean to hide it from you, but in this life, no matter what, a person can't choose their own birth. My mother is the hall master of the heavenly fate-flying paradise. This is a fact that I cannot deny. Senior brothers and sisters, we bear you no ill will. If you're willing to surrender, I guarantee that you'll be able to obtain some unexpected gains. After hearing these words, Lin Miao was the first to rush over and punch Mu Xiaoxue's face in the face. As a result, two all-seer guards rushed up to him and pinned him to the ground. With tears in her eyes, Mu Xiaoxue covered her face with one hand and cried pitifully, Senior brothers and sisters, I'm sorry. I hope you can understand me. I didn't have a choice. Lin Miao, what are you doing? Gu Yishuan said angrily. Chapter 45-37. Eldest brother, are you stupid? They're the ones arresting people right now. They're the ones causing all this trouble. What's wrong with you? Why are you scolding Miao? Is Miao wrong to scold her? What choice is there? What solution is there? Don't you know what heavenly fortune is? I'm sorry. Mu Xiaoxue covered her small face with one hand and cried pitifully, Miss Gu, Sister Lin. I know you dislike me and hate me a lot. But shouldn't the top priority be to save everyone's lives first? Actually, wouldn't it be better if everyone took a step back? Mu Xiaoxue looked timidly at Lin Miao and Gu Yisen and said softly, previously in the mystic realm, it was such a dangerous moment. It was our heavenly fortunes people who saved everyone. Was that saving us? Lin Miao questioned loudly and interrupted her coldly, Can you get your facts straight? That's because you offended the little stoic. She wanted to kill you. We were just collateral damage and were implicated by you. Enough. Zhao Yi was like an angry lion, pushing Lin Miao hard. You shut up. Zhao Yi, you big lustful idiot. Why don't you just stick around with this bitch? I think you're so stupid right now that you've even forgotten your ancestor's name. Zhao Yi glared at Lin Muir with bulging eyes and heavy breathing, and he slapped her heavily. Mu Xiaoxue wailed and hurriedly pounced over to hold Zhao Yi's arm. She cried pitifully, "Senior brother Zhao, don't be like this." Elder sister Lin was so angry that she didn't know what to say. Forgive her this once. Little junior sister, why are you still pleading for this kind of person? Zhao Yi hugged her back and glared at Lin Muir from the corner of his eyes, his finger almost poking Lin Muir's face. I'm telling you, Lin Muir, if you insult my little junior sister again, don't blame me for pulling out your tongue. Little junior sister already explained it to you, what else do you want her to do? Can she control her own birth? Can she choose her parents? You are simply unreasonable. Zhao Yi lowered his head and comforted his little princess softly. Little junior sister, don't cry. Senior brother understands you. Don't worry, no matter who you are, no matter what path you take. Senior brother will still protect you. I will definitely not let anyone harm you. Senior brother. Mu Xiaoxue raised her head with teary eyes and called out softly. Zhao Yi immediately felt as if he had ascended to a new height. He had completely assumed the role of Mu Xiaoxue's protector. He raised his hand and hugged his junior sister's soft body. His heart couldn't help but flutter. Mu Xiaoxue wiped her tears and said pitifully, I know you can't accept it yet. I can give you some time to think about it. Actually, senior brothers and sisters, there's something you don't know. Our City of Shadows has been cooperating with Tianyun for a long time. Many senior brothers and sisters who have been in the sect for a long time actually know. Of course, I should have found a better time to tell my senior brothers and sisters about this. However, this incident happened too suddenly. We encountered a great danger in the mystic realm and had no choice but to use the Stairway Talisman. It's a rare god-level talisman from the Hall of Heavenly Fortune Talisman. Actually, everyone was saved by the talisman from the Hall of Heavenly Fortune Talisman. That's how we were able to safely escape from the mystic realm. Chapter 45-38. So I hope that all of you can think about it carefully. Mu Xiaoxue said softly, I sincerely hope that all of you can join Tianyun and walk together forever. I can guarantee that as long as you are willing to join, you will have all kinds of cultivation resources, all kinds of spiritual weapons and dharma treasures. I will not treat you badly. Little junior sister, we will go wherever you go. Gu Yishuan immediately said, I will support you. Big brother. Gu Yisun looked at the man in front of her in surprise, as if she had met such a brother for the first time. Yisun, don't say any more. Gu Yishuan looked at his sister coldly. My life was saved by Master, I will not betray Master. Senior brother Gu, thank you for understanding me. Mu Xiaoxue was touched. Gu Yisun looked at her brother in shock, unable to say anything for a long time. Brother, do you want the Gu family to fall into eternal damnation? After a long time, Gu Yisun finally found her voice. Don't you know what kind of organization Tianyun is? Don't you know what kind of relationship the three continents, and the three continents have with Tianyun? You want to take the whole family with you to fight against the most powerful force in the three continents. Gu Yisun felt that her voice was trembling all the time. She finally managed to finish a sentence. Do you think it's realistic? Miss Gu, the power of Tianyun is beyond your imagination. We are not much worse than the elite team gathered by the three continents. You will know very soon. Mu Xiaoxue showed a gentle smile. You will find that your choice is very correct. Okay, you all, have a good rest first. I will ask you all tomorrow. I hope that you can give me a satisfactory answer. Mu Xiaoxue tilted her head innocently and bowed to the crowd with a smile. Then she turned around and left the lower cabin. After the door to the lower cabin was closed again, everything in front of them fell into darkness. Lin Miao muttered to herself, crazy, it was really crazy. Mu Xiaoxue turned around and went out, her face completely gloomy. Miss, your face is swollen. A maid followed behind her and looked at her gloomy face with some fear. I'm fine. Mu Xiaoxue said coldly. She clenched her fists tightly and suppressed the anger in her eyes. That damned Lin Muir actually dared to attack her. If it wasn't for the fact that this person was still useful, she would have killed her just now. Mu Xiaoxue's pretty face was cold as she quickly walked towards her cabin. Get someone to watch over them. Remember to check every 4 hours. Don't give them a chance to recover their spiritual sense. Yes, Mississippi, Mu Xiaoxue sneered and muttered to herself, Lin Muir and Guisen, those two women better not refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. She had plenty of ways to make these two submit. The Lin family and the Gu family were definitely going to board the ship called Heavenly Fate. In the morning, Arbor found that there was a torrential rainstorm in the middle of the night last night. The air outside was full of a moist smell. Sparkling and translucent water droplets rolled gently on the leaves of the branches. Chapter 45-39. Hearing light footsteps, Hao Guang and his group, who were barbecuing in the ice and snow, quickly turned their heads. Second Sect Master, you finally appeared. Hao Guang jumped up and called out with a chuckle. Arbor glanced at the old man's nondescript jacket. Cold? Not cold? Hao Guang glanced at her in confusion. The temperature at night will be much lower than it is now. Second Sect Master, you can't sense your realm at all? With the Second Sect Master's cultivation, he actually couldn't sense the change in the outside world's temperature? Arbor was startled. Looking at the old man's bewildered gaze, she couldn't help but snicker. Of course I can sense it. It's quite cold. Second Sect Master. Hao Guang still wanted to say something but was immediately dragged over by Feng Zhangfei. That guy nagged, all right, stop talking nonsense. Where's the thing you're barbecuing? It's almost burnt. Take a look yourself. The old man instantly forgot to talk to the little stoic and hastily ran to the barbecue rack to flip over his deer meat. It's rare for an old man like me to eat meat after so many years. Don't burn it. Haven't you been eating meat every day these days? You still dare to say that? I've had enough of eating sea fish all year round in this world of ice and snow. Zhangfei, what are you looking at? Feng Zhangqing glanced at his younger brother curiously and followed his gaze. He saw Emo Lien taking out a thick cloak from her inner world and draping it over the little girl. She was currently tying the cloak for her with lowered eyes. Feng Zhangfei thought that the little girl must have returned to her portable godly realm yesterday. Therefore, she didn't sense the temperature difference between day and night on this deserted island at all. When Senior Hao Guang mentioned it, she was slightly dazed and replied, Eldest brother, I think Feng Heping isn't that unreliable. Feng Zhangqing was taken aback and looked at his younger brother in amusement. Isn't it that the 10,000-year-old phoenix tree that runs after others is unreliable? Feng Zhangfei couldn't help but laugh and roll his eyes at his elder brother. You can just say this in front of me. The Feng Heping hears it. What are you laughing at? Do you think the first elder is really that reliable? I'll tell your elder brother. They picked that facial paralysis person out of millions of people. They're really quite reliable. Feng Zhangqing couldn't help but laugh. Didn't you always find her unpleasant? What's the matter? Do you really want to marry him? Fuck you. Feng Zhangfei casually threw a punch over. Sister. When Arbor heard the shout, he turned around and saw his brother running over. He let out a long sigh of relief. He floated to her side and asked, Little sister, are you okay? Big brother was wrong. Big brother didn't follow you well. I let you act alone. Mo Lien interrupted, Big bro, I've been with Jojo the whole time. I wasn't acting alone. Mu Xingchen glanced at him. Sister, are you angry with Big brother? Why would I be angry? Then you left without saying goodbye again last night. Mu Xingchen lowered his voice and said, You secretly hid in the star domain. Big bro, don't flatter yourself. Jojo was tired yesterday. How could he remember you? Mo Lien rolled her eyes at him. Jojo doesn't have the time to be angry with you. Mu Xingchen turned around and glared at him. Besides, let's hurry up and make him. Mo Lien blinked and looked at his wife, who reached out her hand to cover his mouth. It's time to vote. I'm having a dream. Chapter 45-40. Mo Lien looked at her aggrievedly. Wife, why did you gag me? Wasn't he chatting with Big Brother? Arbor hastily tugged at his sleeve and coughed lightly. Big Brother, I'm fine. It's just that I came back too late yesterday, so I really want to have a good rest. The more he spoke, the guiltier Arbor felt, and his voice quieted down. Oh, it's fine. Jojo, if you feel tired, you can take advantage of this time to have a good rest on the deserted island. Mu Xingchen smiled at her and said, in any case, we're going to stay here for a while. Arbor nodded slightly. Then, Scattered Light's joyful cry reached their ears. Second Faction Master, come and taste the meat I roasted. It's pretty good. Let's go. Mu Xingchen gestured with his chin with a smile. The three people walked over and sat around the fire. This guy purposely flattened the nearby snow, and now, everyone looked like they were sitting in a snow pit and eating barbecue, looking a bit comical. Eating so greasy so early in the morning, will we get indigestion later? As the little stoic spoke, she had already taken a piece of barbecue meat from Old Man Scattered Light and bit into it. Everyone, you're always so insincere when you speak. It's a bit comical. How are the effects of cultivating in the cave? I checked yesterday, and everyone has made some small improvements recently. Rong said with a smile. Although this place is extremely cold in a world of ice and snow, it's indeed greatly helpful for tempering the body and cultivating spiritual energy. Arbor nodded. This isn't the coldest place. I checked before, and the further west you go, the colder it gets. Arbor waved the barbecue meat in his hand. I'll go check again later. If that's the case, I can use a spirit guiding talisman formation to guide it. Perhaps I can set up a natural spiritual land there. I just don't know if the place is big enough. This place borders the snowy mountain range. The old man mumbled, maybe we can explore deeper. Maybe we can find a better spiritual cave. I see that you guys have come all the way here. If you can't find a good place, then wouldn't you have come all the way for nothing? Xiao Mu thought that this old man's words were reasonable. If she could find a spiritual land that was even purer, or even a divine domain, she could use the talisman array to support it. At that time, her cultivation speed would be able to travel 1,000 miles in a day. All right then. After breakfast, let's all go out and search. By the way, didn't Senior Scattered Light say that you can have as many spiritual artifacts as you want? What do you want, Second Sect Leader? Hao Guang stared at his second sect leader vigilantly. He felt that the next sentence from this scammer wouldn't be anything good. From what I can see, some of the soldiers in the barracks don't even have a suitable spiritual weapon. Mi Guang suddenly had a bad feeling. You've spent so many years on this desolate island. Usually, you can only mine and refine weapons on the island. Who said that? I have nothing to do. If you have a lot of spiritual artifacts, take some out. The old man blew his beard and glared. You went to the secret realm of that old bastard Tianjizi and didn't get anything? Arbor looked sincere and shook his head. We were all spat out by Senior Tianjizi's secret realm. Chapter 45-41. And Wushuang nodded. Yes. She sighed with a faint sorrowful expression. We said we would find a good artifact refining cauldron for Big Brother, but in the end we couldn't even find a hair. This son of a bitch Tianjizi really isn't a good person. Hao Guang cursed and fiercely gnawed on a chicken bone. I'm telling you guys, this old man still has to take those good toys with him and sleep forever underground. Arbor silently took out a cup of spirit tea and slowly drank it. The old man suddenly paused his movements, and his nose very sensitively sniffed again and again. His wrinkled and shining old eyes stared at Arbor. Second Sect Master, this tea of yours? You must have refined a lot of scrap metal, Arbor said unhurriedly. If it's not tens of thousands, it's probably in the thousands. Second Sect Master, this tea of yours, what kind of tea is it? It smells pretty good. How about... Arbor didn't give him a chance to continue speaking and interrupted him. Take out 800 spirit tools first. The old man had the urge to vomit blood. What? Sigh. Arbor sighed. Not only do I have spirit tea for you to drink, but I also have a type of spirit bamboo shoot. It has a pretty good effect on prolonging life, replenishing chi, and regulating breathing. Oh, I wonder if you've eaten the colorful divine fish before. The old man's saliva was about to drip down. He looked at Arbor with his mouth wide open and suddenly closed it. I have to taste it first. Arbor thought for a moment and then took out a cup of spirit tea from his inner world and handed it to the old man. He took out a bowl of colorful divine fish and spirit bamboo shoot soup that he had prepared beforehand and handed it to the old man. Try it? Everyone's gaze uniformly fell on the bowl in the old man's hand. The old man hastily picked up the bowl protectively, took out 2 chopsticks from his inner world, and began to eat. 3 minutes later, the old man put down an empty bowl and stared at the little stoic in front of him with shining eyes. How is it? Arbor asked unhurriedly. I have to eat this while I'm on the island. Oh. Arbor nodded. Do you think that's all I have? Let me tell you, the ingredients that I have are filled with spiritual energy and divine power. I guarantee that you won't get the same ingredients after eating them for a month. I will provide you with 800 spirit weapons every month. 1,000. Deal. Today, I'll hand over these 800 pieces as a gift for our first meeting. Everyone was speechless. You really won't lose out no matter what. Second sect master, when our sect master Xuanji passed the position of sect master to you, didn't he pass on any spirit weapons or dharma treasures to you? That's impossible, the old man thought. Why did the second sect leader look so poor? The entire Xuanji mystic realm belonged to her, so how could she not inherit it? The little stoic instantly turned hostile and mercilessly slapped the old man's shoulder heavily. You want me to open my private stash? The old man looked at the little girl's serious face and suddenly felt that if he nodded his head, the little girl would definitely send him flying with a kick. The old man quickly smiled obsequiously and said, That won't do, that won't do. That won't do. I can't let the second sect master fork out both money and effort. Refining weapons is completely no problem for me, no problem at all. But in terms of materials, the old man wasn't stupid. He wouldn't do it if he had to fork out his own money, effort, and materials every month. Since he couldn't threaten the second sect master's husband, the old man directly shifted his gaze to Ming Yasi and Air Rong. Chapter 45-42. Senior Scattered Light, please rest assured. We can naturally provide the ingredients, Ming Yasi continued expressionlessly. Just as Air Rong was about to speak, he heard the little stoic make the final decision. All right then, you'll pay for the ingredients. Ming province is vast, sparsely populated, and rich, so it has all kinds of precious ingredients. It's very good that you can take the initiative to fork them out. It shows that you finally have some awareness. Everyone, Ming Yasi, why did he freaking want to hit her so much? This stoic face really gave him a headache. It was clearly this fellow who was stingy and didn't want to pay, yet she had to put on a serious face to scare people. Most importantly, it was bad enough that she cheated herself, but she even led Air Rong astray and cheated others as well. If she hadn't interrupted them just now, Air Rong would have been willing to pay the other half of the ingredients. All right. Since we're all in the same boat. Ming Yasi said with a huff, I don't have any other requests. We'll pay for the ingredients. But we must treat everyone equally when it comes to food. Senior Scattered Light eats and drinks whatever he wants, so we also have to eat and drink whatever he wants. All the little companions instantly nodded heavily in agreement. Earlier, when they freaking watched Senior Scattered Light eat until he was snoring, they were about to drool. The little stoic glanced at everyone present with a somewhat conflicted expression. Her gaze actually contained a bit of indescribable meaning. Feng Zhangqing almost laughed out loud. This fellow's expression was clearly saying, You bunch of foodies are really worrying me to death. Seeing that we're all allies in the future, then let's do it this way. Arbor nodded and counted the number of people present. It didn't seem to be a lot. At most, he would provide some ingredients and let them cook on their own. However, if they wanted to eat Jojo's food, it wasn't impossible. Senior Scattered Light, what do you think of the soup just now? The ingredients were very delicious, But the chef really isn't much. Scattered Light snorted and said, "That fish should have been roasted. It's such a good divine fish, yet it's roasted to a crisp. Most importantly, why did you throw it into the soup after roasting it? What kind of bizarre method is this?" The corners of everyone's mouths twitched. Feng Zhangfei very kindly reached out and poked the old man who was speaking frankly with assurance. "Why don't you take a look at the ugly expression on your second sect master's face?" Pumph. The little stoic suddenly stood up, clasped her hands behind her back, and trotted away. Mo Lien and Mu Xingchen laughed like crazy. The actual situation was that the little stoic had roasted 2 fish by herself. She didn't feel much after eating less than half of it. She ate her husband's roasted meat. The little stoic didn't have a place to put the remaining 1.5 bamboo shoots, so she threw them into the spiritual bamboo shoot soup that she had eaten more than half. She originally wanted to casually send them to the beast to eat, but Senior Fine Light, this foodie, just happened to come, so she let him have it. The little girl left angrily. Hao Guang was confused. "What's wrong? What did I say?" Why is second-generation sect master glaring at this old man with a foul face? Your second-generation sect master is very good at holding grudges. The 2 brothers, Feng Zhangqing and Feng Zhangf, thought, this old fellow still doesn't know what happened. "All right, senior. Now that we've eaten our fill, it's time to refine weapons." Feng Zhangfei reminded him with a grin, "You still have to deliver the goods today." The old man thought about it. He had inexplicably provoked the second-generation sect master just now, so he should properly make up for it. "Then I'll come out to find you at night." Chapter 45-43. The old man looked a little pitiful as he left. Everyone looked at him silently and could only shed tears of sympathy for him in their hearts. After offending Master Jojo, he probably wouldn't have a good time for a while. In the next few days, Arbor and the others started to search every place on the deserted island. Every inch of land was worth an inch of gold. Walking to the west, they could see the undulating snowy mountains. At a glance, it was hard to see the end. The old man took the time to tell them that the terrain in the depths of the snowy mountains was quite complicated. At that time, Tianjizi, that old bastard, was the king of the mountains. He had set up a lot of dam arrays in the passages of the snowy mountains. If they weren't careful, they would probably be trapped by Tianjizi. The entrance to the mystic realm that you saw on the beach was set up by Tianjizi himself. Hao Guang pursed his lips. As he was busy with the work in his hands, he couldn't help but scold Tianjizi. It is said that one day, he came back after 3 months at sea and got himself lost in the array in the snowy mountains. Hao Guang pursed his lips and sneered. In order to crack his own array, this guy spent 7 days and 8 nights before he could get back to his old nest. Everyone, why did they feel that the old seniors were all so unreliable? After that old bastard was worried that if he had to go out for a few more months, he would trap himself again when he came back. So he set up a fast passage on the beach. Hao Guang snorted. What else do you think? How could he set up an entrance to the mystic realm on the beach? That's Tianjizi, that old bastard, for his own convenience. Arbor said expressionlessly. No matter how bad he is, it's impossible for him to make a mistake about the array he set up. You took advantage of the time when he was away to enter the snowy mountains and destroy it, right? Hao Guang, yes, I did it. Not to mention that he's dead now. Even if he's standing in front of me alive, I'm not afraid to say it to his face. So you should have drawn a map of the complicated array in the snowy mountains, right? Hao Guang, how did you know? Second sect master. Aren't you a little expert at drawing? Arbor reached out his small hand. Show me. According to the map provided by the old man, Arbor raised a nondescript line map in his hand and studied it carefully for a while. Go ahead, and you should be able to reach a flat valley. In fact, the area of this snowy mountain range was very wide. If one were to extend forward, it could encircle half of the entire river of forgetfulness. Looking from afar, it was like a snowy mountain that stretched up and down. It stood on the surface of the sea all year round, and it was a rare sight. Along the way, Arbor and the others avoided the array that Tianjizi had set up in the snowy mountain range. The map drawn by Old Man Hao Guang was quite reliable. Most of the mechanisms and formations were marked out. Even if there were some omissions, it was not a big problem. I didn't expect the deserted island to be connected to the depths of the snowy mountains. Crown Prince Rong sighed softly. This place seemed to be desolate, but who would have thought that the snowy roads inside were really interconnected and complicated? They traveled all the way from the deserted island to the depths of the snowy mountain range after crossing over a dozen miles of the sea. So, when we first entered Tianjizi's secret realm from the beach on the deserted island, we were actually teleported so far away? And Wu Shuang asked curiously. That's right. Mo Lian nodded. If it weren't for Hao Guang, we probably wouldn't have been able to find Tianjizi's secret realm. Chapter 45-44. That's right. No wonder everyone could only search for treasures in the outskirts of the Snow Ridge sacred land. No one could actually enter. And Wu Shuang suddenly realized. We were teleported from the entrance of the secret realm to the secret realm. When we came out, we were still on that deserted island. If sister-in-law hadn't asked Senior Mi Guang for the map, who knows how long we would have to wander around the deserted island to find the correct path to the depths of the Snow Ridge. Arbor nodded. What do you think of this place? Not bad. Yas coldly interjected. The flat valley in front of them looked very spacious at first glance. There were sparse flowers and trees planted on both sides. The entire environment was like a large drill ground. It was indeed very suitable for training soldiers. Moreover, this place was big and spacious enough. Most importantly, it was secluded enough. There were no traces of people here. Even birds couldn't fly to this place. According to the map, Tianjizi once set up a teleportation point to the secret realm nearby, Arbor said expressionlessly. Of course, now that the secret realm no longer existed, no one would care whether this teleportation point existed or not. In fact, she was the one who took the map and threw it to Tianjizi in the Tianji secret realm. The chubby senior apprentice brother recognized the nearby landscape at a glance. He also told her very clearly that wherever she went, there would be a flat valley suitable for training soldiers. Wherever she went, there would be a dead end. The little girl seemed to be holding the map and muttering all the way, but in fact, she was following the chubby senior apprentice brother's instructions. It was very unlikely that she would trigger the traps set by Tianjizi in the early years. Since that's the case, everyone should remember the nearby traps and formations. Don't accidentally trigger them in the future. Tomorrow, bring everyone here and settle them down. I need 3 days to set up a large-scale spirit guiding talisman formation here. At that time, regardless of whether it was divine power or spiritual power, they would all surge in from all directions. This place would become a large-scale divine realm. The talisman formation could last for at least half a year. And they probably had less than half a year left. Seeing Tianjizi's recent actions, Arbor suspected that they had completely lost their patience. It was night. The stars shone on the empty snowy land in the flat valley. Long Xinghua leaned on her cane, coughed a few times, and slowly moved behind Arbor. Young Mississippi, the old woman bowed. Granny, it's so late. Why aren't you sleeping? What are you doing out here? Arbor turned around and frowned at her. Although the poison in your bodies has been cured, you still need to recuperate for a period of time. Thank you for saving my life, little Mississippi. Long Xinghua's eyes revealed a trace of deep gratitude as she bowed her head and said, if Miss had not said it clearly, this old one would still be in the dark. I really didn't know that over 30 people in our Dragon Clan branch had all been poisoned by the same poison. They are really crazy. At first, I only thought that they had poisoned me. It was only when you told me that Xian Xian was also poisoned that I found out that they didn't even spare my 8-year-old granddaughter. If she had known from the start that this would be the price she would have to pay, she would not have signed a contract with those demons at all. She had always wanted to return to the Forgotten River tribe to take a look. Fortunately, she had met her benefactor again. Otherwise, when she reached the end of her life, she was afraid that she would not be able to rest in peace. Arbor nodded slightly at her. You came to find me. Did the person of Tian Jizi contact you? Chapter 45-45. The old woman shook her head guiltily. That's the strangest thing. Originally, they would send someone to secretly contact me every 3 days and tell me what to do next. But now, it's been more than 7 days and they still haven't sent anyone to find me. Long Xinghua frowned and said worriedly, I'm worried that I might have been exposed. That's why they cut off contact with me. Arbor nodded slightly. Granny, don't take this to heart. If they're exposed, then so be it. It's best that they don't come looking for you. It saves us a lot of trouble. In the future, you and Xianxian will stay on this island for the time being and live well. But Granny Long's face was full of shame and guilt. But I can't help Little Benefactor. All these years, it's been Little Benefactor who has helped us time and time again. We've been powerless. Now, even this small matter has been ruined by me. Xiao Mu shook her head aloofly. There are many intelligent people in Heavenly Fate. Now they've probably realized that this method is not reliable. Actually, this method is very clumsy. Among Granny's group, the highest realm is only a 10th level God realm expert. That person alone can take me away from this island unknowingly? How is that possible? Long Xinghua nodded. Thinking about it, it's just that they're in the dark while we're in the light. If they think of other ways to deal with Little Miss, then it's really hard to guard against. Arbor turned around and looked at the distant stars. I'm not afraid of them coming. I'm just afraid that they won't dare to jump out and die. Long Xinghua saw that she was full of confidence and couldn't help but feel relieved. It's late. Little Miss has been very busy these days. Now that the team has finally settled down, you should go and rest early. Okay. Arbor raised her white wrist and subconsciously tugged at the velvet cloak on her body. After taking 2 steps, she turned back and said softly, Don't be afraid, we're here for you. Granny Long pursed her lips and looked at the little girl with long hair under the moonlight. At that moment, she seemed to see the little girl's eyes filled with bright stars, so bright that it almost burned the entire night. Long Xinghua nodded emotionally. Her voice was slightly choked with emotion. Granny will live well and watch how our Mrs. Daughter leads everyone to break through these layers of barriers. It was still bright and resplendent, full of prosperity. 2 days later, the training of the 30,000 elite disciples was already on track. Xiao Mu planned to sit down hand in hand with her Lien to have a good chat about the matter of his unstable cultivation realm. The little stoic expressionlessly stared at the damned talisman in her hand, somewhat hesitant in her heart. Her husband wasn't willing to work hard on his cultivation and was always lovey-dovey with her. If she didn't use some powerful methods on him, would he be obedient? However, if she used this rapid cultivation talisman, her husband's mind would be filled with cultivation in the future. What would he do without Lord Jojo? Did her husband forget about Jojo? No way, no way. Jojo, why are you sitting here in a daze? Mo Lien found his wife on the boulder at the entrance of Ping Valley and scooted over with a grin. Wifey, Long Huan has brought people over. Should we meet him? What did he come here for? Arbor secretly stuffed the rapid cultivation talisman back into her sleeve. Chapter 45-46. Arbor expressionlessly hopped down from the rock and glanced sideways at her husband. Hubby, why do you keep looking at me like this? Jojo, hubby had a strange feeling of being targeted just now. Mo Lien blinked innocently. You aren't thinking of doing something to hubby, right? Arbor, exclamation point. This guy's intuition was too sharp. What kind of structure was this guy exactly? He didn't feel like a human. Jojo, do it. No matter what you do to hubby, hubby won't even frown. This guy pounced on her and hugged her, beaming with joy. You flatter yourself. Who would target you? The little stoic strode past him and swiftly transferred the speed cultivation talisman under her sleeve into her inner world. It was better to consider this matter at length. This was her dearest husband. If hubby wasn't willing to speed cultivate, she couldn't be like that swindler de Yuan and slap a talisman on him and force him to cultivate, right? Speaking of which, it was really worrisome. Hubby was too clingy, and she didn't know what to do. Sigh. The little fellow curled her lips and left him with the back of her head. Mo Lien found it inexplicably funny and immediately floated to her side. Jojo, are you feeling guilty? Who's feeling guilty? If you're not feeling guilty, why don't you dare to look at hubby? Heh. Arbor quickly lifted his head and cast her a glance before swiftly retracting his gaze. He humphed. Stop making so much noise and hurry up. Did Long Huan come alone? What did he come here for? Mo Lien blinked and swiftly caught up to her. He held her small hand. Long Huan came to deliver a gift. The little fellow thought, how could this person be so kind-hearted? Logically speaking, she had already broken off relations with the Wangchuan dragon clan, so Long Huan truly shouldn't have come here to avoid arousing suspicion. Using teleportation rune arrays, the two of them were teleported from Ping Valley to the snowy island where they had been staying before. The moment they stepped on the island, they heard the clanging sounds of fighting and shouting. Both of them were scammers. After looking at each other, their figures flashed and they hid to the side. At the same time, they stuck out their heads and secretly observed who was fighting. He saw Long Shi leading Long Shangyun and the others to fight against a bunch of corpses that were crawling all over the place. Arbor was stunned and asked Mo Lien in a low voice, "What has the old man been doing on the island these days?" Since Mi Guang had been refining weapons every day, he didn't have the time to dig out all the corpses of the deep fire heart-devouring worms. Mo Lien whispered into her ear, "Over the past 2 days, most of the soldiers from the 3 prefectures have been training with these corpses as their targets." Arbor replied with an "oh." After settling everyone down, he returned to being a hands-off boss as usual. Each team has 100 people. Mo Lien looked down at him and said, "There are a total of 300 teams in the Kill the Heavenly Fate battle group. Their first mission is to gather all the corpses possessed by the deep fire heart-devouring worms on the deserted island." Arbor's eyes brightened. She looked at the large group of corpses on the beach without any change in expression. "There are probably more than 200 corpses here." Mo Lien nodded. The Kill the Heavenly Fate battle group dug up all the corpses that could be found. These deep fire heart-devouring worms would avoid living people when they see them. They are only interested in corpses. These things aren't very useful. The corpses they control are far inferior to real corpse puppets in terms of agility and toughness. Chapter 45-47. The two of them stealthily hid on the side and observed the scene of Long Huan leading his men to kill the corpses. When the battle was nearing its end, the two of them looked at each other and walked out hand in hand, pretending to casually sweep their eyes over the area. "Isn't this young Master Long? You've come from afar." "Excuse me for not going out to meet you," Mo Lien said with a smile. Arbor's small face was taut and she didn't say anything. Her large eyes looked around as if they were flying. She glanced at Long Shangyun, who was drenched in sweat, and abruptly shifted her gaze away. Long Huan turned his head and saw this troublemaker couple standing not far from the beach and looking at them. The two of them were dressed in plain white and stood side by side hand in hand. Their beauty was truly unparalleled, but their troublemaking character was too troublesome. These two people had actually been standing on the side watching the show for a long time, so how could Long Huan not know? However, even if he knew, he could only laugh bitterly. What else could he say? The little stoic's attitude was already pretty good that she didn't roar, scram, at the siblings when she saw them, all right? Why the heck did Long Huan and Long Shangyun actually think that the little stoic's attitude towards them today was acceptable? Thinking back, they had been brutally abused by the stoic face many times, so they were already used to the other party's necessary attributes for tricking people. Long Huan turned around to kill a mutated corpse and cupped his hands at the two in the midst of his haste. He said with a wry smile, "Please don't make fun of this older brother. Younger cousin, cousin-in-law, we came here to discuss something with the two of you. Please have them stop first." The little stoic, "You think these corpses are our handiwork? We're not a corpse-nurturing ground like Tianyun." This older brother misspoke. Long Huan reacted extremely quickly and hastily changed his excuse. "Please help me take care of these guys first, all right?" Long Shangyun, after not seeing this little stoic for so many days, her temperament became even more unpredictable. Scattered light. A flying spirit tool in the shape of a flying pigeon suddenly shot out from behind and stopped on the beach with a whoosh. Second sect master. What do you think of my air transportation spiritual artifact? Senior Fine Light opened the spirit tool cabin and jumped out with a smile on his face. This air transportation spirit tool can carry 3,000 people at most. With its flying speed, it would be easy for it to travel 10,000 li in a day. How? The space is big and spacious enough. It's fast enough, isn't it? And it's still a little lacking compared to my husband's skills. Build several dozen more and leave them with me as backup, the little stoic said. The old man was so angry that his beard blew and his eyes widened. This guy wanted him to work, but he couldn't say anything nice. Since the people of the underworld region are willing to pay for the materials, you should make more things. Look at you, you're already so old, but your craftsmanship isn't even half as good as your husband's. Now, I'm letting you train. Don't always bother your husband with these things. He's very tired. But your father is tired. That lad looked like he had nothing to do all day long. He would walk back and forth behind his wife, talking about what his wife would eat today and what she would eat tomorrow. The two of them would talk about this meaningless topic all day long. Busy my ass, talking nonsense all day long. Arbor was expressionless. He glanced at the old man and said in deadly earnest, "All right, we've greeted them. Take these things back." "Alrighty." Scattered Light took out a space container from his pocket and threw it into the empty space in the middle. Long Shangyun and the others hastily retreated. Chapter 45-48. 5-0-300 Weirdo Hospitality. The space container that looked like a bowl expanded in the wind and turned into a small mound. A small door that could allow one person to pass through opened in the middle. An extremely pleasant fragrance floated out from within. Long Qian, Long Shangyun, and the others were on guard as they quickly covered their mouths and noses, blocking their five senses in horror. They were afraid that the fragrance was some kind of poisonous gas. If they accidentally breathed in a little, they would be even more unlucky. When Arbor saw them like this, she did not have any other expression. She only glanced at them indifferently. The group of corpses that had been searching frantically suddenly stopped and obediently crawled in one after another, following the scent. When the last corpse entered, Hao Guang kept the space container with a smile and weighed it in his hand. "Second sect master, do you want this little thing?" Arbor took a step back in disgust. It was so ugly that it made her feel disgusted. She was not sick. Why would she want a pile of corpses by her side? Hao Guang touched his nose. Seeing the little girl's disdain for him, he could not help but feel a little frustrated. "Second sect master, then I'll go back first." Arbor nodded. She did not want to keep this guy. When Hao Guang left with the lid bowl, Long Shangyun jumped up and said angrily, "Great, and you said you didn't do it on purpose. You knew that we came here to look for you, but you still let the corpses bite us. Speaking of which, where did these corpses come from? You're also raising corpses?" Before Long Shangyun could finish her sentence, Long Huan tugged on her arm forcefully. She staggered and glared at her brother in dissatisfaction. "Big brother, what are you doing? I said something wrong. Cousin naturally would not raise any corpses." Long Qian threw Long Shangyun a look that said, "Do you want to die?" The latter sneaked a glance at Arbor. She saw that her little face was tense as she looked at her expressionlessly. Long Shangyun stopped yelling and pretended to cough. "Come to think of it, you would not go and get these disgusting corpses. You're right to reject them. Keeping corpses won't do you any good." It was hard to imagine how shocking it would be for such a jade-like little stoic to become a zombie keeper. Long Shangyun hurriedly shook her head to get rid of the ominous image in her mind. "Are you done being long-winded?" Xiao Mu raised her voice and hollered at Long Shangyun as usual. The latter was stunned. An indescribable feeling rose in his heart. What's going on? It's been a long time since I've heard the little fellow's roar. Now that I hear it, I actually feel a little nostalgic. What kind of mentality was she in? He was frequently abused by the little stoic, but after being separated for a period of time, he was actually thinking about her? Arbor turned to look at Longhua. Speak your mind. Longhuan couldn't help but smile wryly. He looked at his exhausted clansmen behind him, then looked at the little stoic who didn't look worried, and said weakly, Can you invite us in to sit? As soon as he finished speaking, the siblings discovered that a pair of peerlessly beautiful beauties in front of them were looking at them like they were idiots. Longhuan's mouth twitched. Just as he was about to say something, he heard the little stoic grumpily say, This isn't a mountain resort or a resort. Where would there be a place to sit? You'll be able to see it with a glance. Other than a deserted island, there are snow pits and also a karst cave. Where do you want to sit? Chapter 45-49. Longhuan wanted to cry and said meekly, Then, can we move somewhere else first? This place was filled with the stench of corpses. It was really smelly. Also, many of them hadn't even gone to the beach and were still soaking in the sea. What kind of bizarre hospitality was this? Did these two people have any awareness of hospitality at all? If they dissected this couple, their hearts would probably be as black as ink. Longhuan's heart ached a bit for himself. Arbor glanced at him faintly before turning to lead her husband away. You talk too much. Come here. Long Shangyun! Exclamation point. In reality, they hadn't said much since they got onto the island. They had been resisting those crazily crawling corpses the entire time. The little stoic allowed that old man to purposely throw these things out to scare them. This showed that she didn't want to see them at all. Long Shangyun and her brother met each other's eyes. Brother, why do you think she changed her mind again? Longhuan sighed. Who knows? This little stoic's mood swings were really too fast, and her mood swings were too quick. Longhuan tugged on his sister's sleeve and said cautiously, Don't speak first. Let me do the talking. Long Shangyun pursed her lips. Did he think she really wanted to talk to the stoic face? Inside the passenger cabin, Mu Rochuan respectfully sat at the end of the row as if she was completely out of tune with the hustle and bustle before her. A group of elegant and gorgeous dancers was dancing to the soft music of stringed and woodwind instruments. Pink fans twirled up and down, accompanied by emerald sleeves. With raised eyebrows and a wave of sleeves, they were like a row of kingfishers weaving through flowers and twirling trees. Mu Qingya had a smile on her face as she glanced from time to time at Gong Songfeng, who was sitting in front of the short table across from her. Hall Master Gong, are the dishes and wine not to your liking? People from the wilderness aren't so particular, Gong Songfeng said dryly without any fluctuation in his expression. Mu Qingya smiled and didn't take this person's arrogance to heart. Hall Master Gong is too modest. How could someone as magnificent as Hall Master come from the wilderness? Mu Qingya said with a smile as she sipped her wine. Gong Songfeng didn't say anything, and he didn't seem to be interested in the song and dance in front of him. Mu Qingya saw that he had closed his eyes and was pretending to be asleep. She couldn't help but feel annoyed inwardly, but she still revealed a faint smile on her face. This time, my Xian went to the Forgotten River Dragon clan's territory and received the old clan head's hospitality. Old Patriarch's attitude surprised me greatly. From the looks of it, Hall Master Gong is truly far-sighted. He actually knew that the old Patriarch of the Forgotten River Dragon clan had no intention of going against us. Hong Yi winked seductively and said with a smile, Hall Master Mu, you must be joking. What does that old man have against us? The Forgotten River Dragon clan is hiding at the bottom of the sea. What ability do they have to oppose us now? Mu Qingya smiled faintly. Although they didn't object to our cooperation, they didn't explicitly agree to it. She'll agree very soon. Gong Songfeng suddenly opened his eyes and said coldly. Mu Qingya's eyes flashed faintly, and she said with a smile, seemingly intentional or otherwise, in the beginning, the organization didn't say that they wanted to occupy the Dragon Clan's territory as their base. Master suddenly changed his mind. Could it be because of Arbor? Gong Songfeng looked at her with a half-smile. What are you trying to guess? Mu Qingya covered her mouth and chuckled. The Underground Hall's relationship with our Jojo is too good. Chapter 4550. Oh my heavens! That coquettishly handsome man in red abruptly jumped up and repeatedly rubbed his arm as he exclaimed, "Madam Moo, this form of address is still your JoJo? I can't take it anymore, I'm getting goosebumps. Heavens, oh heavens, I'm certain that if the little stoic were here right now and heard you call her that, she would definitely slap your face several times." Mu Qingya's smile froze on her face. Orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple all lowered their heads and silently chuckled. Although red wasn't very reliable, his words were quite accurate. Mu Qingya's expression was very unsightly. However, she was someone who was used to putting on airs, so her expression eased up before long, and she said with an awkward smile, "Red really knows how to joke." "Who's joking with you?" Red paused in his rubbing arm and turned to stare unblinkingly at Mu Qingya. He said faintly, "Why don't you give it a try the next time you see her? I reckon she won't just hit you. She'll even kill you." Everyone, "Very likely." Super insightful, Mu Qingya found it hard to maintain her awkward smile. "Are you all changing the topic?" Mu Qingya withdrew her smile and said seriously, "Hall Master Gong, I'm doing this for everyone's sake. No matter what kind of relationship you had with her in the past, just like I did. Wasn't I her stepmother back then? Let's see how she dealt with me afterward. After our identities were exposed, it was impossible for us to get along well with her." The beauty in green couldn't help but roll her eyes. "You speak as if you've gotten along well with her before." Gong Songfeng sneered at Mu Qingya. "Hall Master Mu, you don't need to meddle in our underground hall's affairs. As for you, I really want to ask, before you made a move to capture someone, did you ask for the opinion of the master behind you?" That person also agreed. Mu Qingya's expression became increasingly unsightly as Gong Songfeng interrogated her step by step. "Although our halls don't usually get along well, for the sake of Ancestor He, I still have to give you some advice. I still have to give you some pointers. No matter how deep your personal grudges are, you have to consider the big picture." Mu Qingya's expression changed again and again. She couldn't help but sneer. "No matter how much I abuse my power for personal gain, it's never been as obvious as what you've done. You guys came up with an excuse to secretly avenge her. This can't be considered an honorable method, right? Don't think that she didn't know that the underground hall clearly didn't have any intention of making a move against the Forgotten River Dragon clan. Wasn't it all because that stoic face had been wronged in the Forget River clan's territory?" Gong Songfeng smiled coldly, "You'd better not guess Master's intentions." Mu Qingya was indignant on the inside, so she couldn't help but say sourly, "Although your master is affectionate and righteous, the little stoic's brain is wired differently from yours, so she might not necessarily appreciate it." "Ah, Madam Mu, what are you saying? You're absolutely right." Hong Yi suddenly interjected with a smile. Everyone looked at him speechlessly. "But there's nothing we can do. We must obey Master's orders." "Oh, that's right. Tomorrow, have Miss Rochuan go to the Forget River clan's territory to ask what that old hag from the Dragon clan wants. It's up to you whether you agree or not. If it doesn't work, then let's just fight our way over. Let's not waste time." Mu Qingya suppressed the anger in her heart and snorted. Chapter 4551. On the other side. Arbor's eyes shone brightly as she looked at the spirit coin card being handed to her. Her large eyes suddenly turned, and her gaze landed on the Long siblings. Long Shangyun, she wasn't sure if it was her misconception, but she suddenly felt that the little stoic's gaze seemed to have become gentler. Damn! Her originally cold little face warmed up slightly, as if a glacier had melted. "Serve the tea." Mo Lien, who was sitting next to her, couldn't help but twitch her mouth. The group was currently sitting around the bonfire in the snow pit. After the little fellow shouted, Feng Chongqing stifled his laughter and very resignedly took 2 clean teacups and handed them to the Long siblings. "Did you see that?" Everyone exchanged glances, and their eyes kept twitching. The difference between paying a tribute and not paying a tribute was quite big. Long Qian coughed lightly and took the teacup after thanking her. After catching his breath, he said, "Cousin, here's the 70 million fairy fare I owe you." As Long Qian spoke, he very consciously took out a small bag and handed it over. There's also this 20 spirit stones for the transportation fee. Everyone's mouths twitched. On the side, Long Shangyun wished she could cover her face. She simply couldn't bear to watch. Her elder brother's current cowardly appearance was really too much of a lackey. Arbor inwardly mused, so the Long siblings came to give her money. In the beginning, she didn't know and thought that the siblings had come to the island to spy on military intelligence. That was why the young couple didn't say anything when the old man released the corpses to torment them and just watched the show. If they had said earlier that they were here to give her money, Sir Jojo wouldn't have tormented them. Long Shangyun suddenly discovered that the little stoic in front of her had gentle and kind eyes when she looked at the siblings, as if a holy light was shining upon them. It's not bad that you can have this kind of awareness. The little stoic nodded with a comforted expression. Mu Xingshan almost choked on his tea and instantly attracted countless accusing gazes. Especially his brother-in-law, who was staring at him like he was an idiot. His gaze was clearly saying, "Brother-in-law, are you an idiot? Can't you see that no one is drinking water right now? Tell me, other than sending money, what else do you want?" Arbor quietly put away the spirit coin card and the spirit stones and asked. Long Huan's expression gradually became serious. "Cousin, Tianyun sent someone over the day before yesterday to talk to grandmother about cooperation." Everyone was stunned. Mu Xingshan's expression darkened. "They've set their sights on the Forgotten River clan's land? Do you want to develop the River of Forgetfulness into the heavenly fate base?" Long Shangyun couldn't help but say angrily, "They dare." Long Qi took a deep breath and exhaled. "I think they have that intention." The little stoic glanced at them. Elderly lady agreed? Was she not even willing to call her grandmother now? Long Shangyun's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Her thoughts were in a mess, and she didn't know what she was regretting. "No, grandmother didn't agree." "She will agree," Arbor said coldly. "For the entire Forgotten River, she will compromise." Long Huan's eyes instantly turned round, and he felt his heart thumping in his chest. It was a complete mess. Why did little cousin say the exact same thing as father? "That's why father told us to come find you. We must think of a way to stop this," Long Huan said hastily. Everyone is well aware of what kind of existence Tianyun is. Chapter 45-52. Forget River can't mix with Tianyun's people. Otherwise, they would definitely be dragged down by Tianyun and become the target of public criticism. With the current Dragon Clan of Forget River's remaining strength, it would be very difficult for them to deal with Tianyun alone, not to mention that they might have to face the enormous power of the entire 3 provinces in the future. How could that be possible? Long Qi stared at Arbor sincerely. "Cousin, let's temporarily set aside the family matters that are troubling you. The urgent matter at hand is to jointly deal with Tianyun, who is closing in on us step by step." Arbor glanced at him but didn't say anything. Long Qi continued, "Family matters are family matters, and state matters are state matters. Cousin definitely knows which is more important. I know that the Dragon Clan members offended Cousin when we were at Forget River Clan's land, but I never bicker with brainless people." Arbor's icy voice inexplicably choked Long Qi, and he instantly felt speechless. "Then Cousin's meaning is?" Long Qi asked meekly. Long Shangyun simply couldn't stand her elder brother's stupidity and kicked him lightly in exasperation before continuing, "Hey, facial paralysis." Seeing everyone's gazes converge on her, Long Shangyun coughed lightly and corrected herself in time. "Hey, cousin, you're right. Let's not take the past to heart. The most important thing right now is to work together to deal with." The little stoic glanced at her and suddenly waved her hand. Long Shangyun silently shut her mouth and then felt that her conditioned reflex was a bit strange. What the hell was wrong with her? What the hell? Why was she used to acting according to the little stoic's mood now? "How many people do you plan to send? When we invited you here, we agreed that we would provide half of the venue and resources. But after falling out with Cousin, the little stoic and the others didn't contact the Dragon Clan again. As for the venue, it was his expressionless cousin who found it by herself. The resources were probably prepared by them too. Although this deserted island was near the snowy mountains and wasn't far from their Forget River clan's land. But they couldn't forcefully say that they provided the venue. So Long Chi glanced at the little stoic extremely awkwardly. Just tell me how many people you can provide at the moment. Seeing this guy hesitate, Arbor was a little impatient. Why are you so naggy? Why are you so tired of me? If you're a man, you should be straightforward. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Long Huan coughed and answered honestly, 3,000. After saying that, he couldn't help but feel a little guilty and timid. He secretly glanced at Emo Lien and Arbor. There aren't many people, but we can provide more cultivation resources. If they're all like the cripples I saw in your clan's land the other day, I think we should just forget about it. They were quite good at gossiping. Whenever they encountered trouble, their faces would turn pale and they wished they could just drill into the ground. He was so useless that he couldn't be any more useless. A person like that couldn't be nurtured no matter what. It was better not to waste resources and effort. Long Huan hurriedly shook his head and said, although there aren't many of these mermen, they are all my elite soldiers. During their training, my father, your uncle, gave them strict instructions. Don't worry, their personal qualities are definitely not inferior to the elites of the 3 prefectures. Arbor stared at him for a full minute. That gaze made Long Ji and Long Xiangyun's hearts beat like a drum. Co-cousin? You're representing yourself in killing the Heavenly Fate battle team. No, it's the entire Forget River. Chapter 45-53. Are you sure you can make this decision? It was not that Arbor was underestimating the Long siblings. In reality, the power of the clan was still in the old matriarch's hands. If she did not give up power, the Long siblings would not be able to touch the core of the Dragon Clan. Long Hua closed his eyes. When he opened them, he took a deep breath. I will bring the 3,000 mermen here as soon as possible. When the time comes, I hope cousin will train them strictly. Do not be soft. Arbor said expressionlessly. If they join in killing Tian Yun, they are our brothers. Of course, we will treat them all equally. It's a deal. Long Chen stood and bowed. As your elder brother, I'll thank cousin first. Thank you for your efforts. Qiao, who had left the work to others, indicated that she did not need to spend much effort. She had made a seal formation in the area and usually walked around the island. It was not troublesome for her to eat and drink, but it was better not to say such direct words. It was annoying. Long Hua turned and bowed to the others. Then he said, I will go back and prepare. When the time comes, I will organize a batch of resources for cousin. Arbor nodded. Long Shangyun also stood up. She looked at Long Shi as if she wanted to say something. Shangyun, you can stay on this island for now. Brother. Long Shangyun had a worried expression. Long Hua still had to return to the clan, gather his personal guards, and bring them to this deserted island. Such a large movement would probably attract the attention of the patriarch. Maybe their so-called secret visit had already attracted the attention of the old patriarch. When I go back, I want to try my best to persuade grandmother. If grandmother could be like cousin and put down those small family matters, and gather forces to fight Tian Yun together, maybe Arbor glanced at him, shook his head and said, it is useless. Old matriarch has been stubborn her entire life. She will not listen to your persuasion. Let me give you a word of advice. When you go back, do not make a big fuss. Just gather your personal guards in secret. When everyone is gathered, leave immediately and do not stay. Long Huan stared blankly at Xiao Mu for a moment before saying with a bitter laugh, cousin's words and father's words almost completely coincide. Allow me to say something unpleasant. Xiao Mu remarked coldly, the Dragon Clan of Forgetfulness has been hiding in a crappy corner for far, far too long. From the inside out, it's been eaten and rotted. Most of your clansmen have lost their will to fight. They have completely lost their courage. As Xiao Mu enunciated each word, Long Huan's complexion turned paler and paler. They just want to be content with their own territory. Perhaps your grandmother will feel that the conditions proposed by Tian Yun are very good. They're already used to compromising. Just like back then, They were beaten so badly by a tiny branch of the dragon clan that they couldn't even raise their heads. Long Yun bit his lips, his pale face devoid of blood. Perhaps, in the beginning, your clan leader would have told you with glib words and twisted logic. It's precisely because you lost the 10,000-year mermaid pearl that your entire clan's overall strength has weakened to this extent. She will tell you, the direct descendants of the dragon clan, how powerful your ancestors were after being baptized by the mermaid pearl. But now, as time passes, the advantage of the mermaid pearl's baptism is weakening with each generation. You need the 10,000-year mermaid pearl urgently, and seek this power for free. Chapter 45-54. Long Shangyun looked at Arbor in shock, her mouth agape as she bit her lower lip. Do you want to ask me how I found out? Arbor swept an indifferent glance over the duo. If you don't want others to know, don't do it in the first place. There is no such thing as an impermeable wall in this world. Long Shangyun stood by the seaside for a long time without looking back as she watched her brother leave with his men. In the end, she still stayed behind because of her brother's words. This trip will be extremely difficult and dangerous. The road ahead is boundless, and I don't know what the outcome will be. If you stay by my side, you will definitely distract me. Long Shangyun took a deep breath and clenched her fists slightly. Brother, you must return safely. Duan Yu's section break. Come back the next day. Arbor pondered over it and took out that damn talisman from his inner world. He carefully examined it again and again. When Arbor recalled the conversation he had with his husband before going to bed yesterday, he felt his balls ache endlessly. Hubby, I heard that your cultivation realm is very unstable. Is that true? A certain person asked cautiously. Who did you hear that from? The crown prince nearly jumped up from the bed. That's utter nonsense without any basis. Don't listen to the nonsense of those people with ulterior motives. Arbor, didn't that Transcendence Realm Formation Master Mao Yang say it himself that day? Many people present heard it, including this Chiao. Hubby, how about you go to Fish Orchid Planet to find a deserted island and enter seclusion to cultivate for a while? Arbor suggested in a small voice. Who would have thought that the guy would immediately press down on her and hug her tightly, making a fuss out of it? What? Wife, you don't want your husband anymore. You actually want me to enter seclusion to cultivate? If I enter seclusion, will I still be able to see my wife? But you can't do it like this. The little stoic was instantly a bit anxious. Judging from hubby's appearance, he really didn't have any intention of entering seclusion. Logically speaking, the current situation could be considered stable, and the killing of the Heavenly Fate battle group should be methodically training on the island. There were many things that could be left to Crown Prince Rong and Ming Yasi. He didn't need to be there every day to keep an eye on them. If her husband said that he wanted to cultivate in seclusion, no one would stop him. This was something that everyone could understand. However, this fellow was unwilling to do so. Hubby, don't worry. The little stoic advised good-naturedly, although it might take 2 years for you to stabilize your realm, it's still not enough. However, don't forget that time flows 12 times faster on the Fish Orchid Planet. In this case, he would be in seclusion for about 2 months. It's very short, right? Who would have thought that her own husband would suddenly have an aggrieved expression on his face, as if the sky was about to collapse? He exclaimed, Jojo, you don't love your husband anymore. You're chasing me away? You want me to go into seclusion for 2 months. Isn't 2 months too long? How many things can your husband do with you in 2 months? I can accompany you through mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas, and see all the sights in the world. Arbor couldn't help but press his small head and look down at the cultivation talisman in his hand again. Fuck, that swindler's clamoring noises by her ear yesterday were like demonic noises, bouncing up and down in her mind, unable to fade away. This couldn't go on. As her husband's wife, she had to do things that were good for him. She had to take advantage of the rare time she had to let him enter the star domain to stabilize his realm. Chapter 45-55. Jojo. Rong Qing ran over and waved at her from afar. The ship, it's here. Xiaomu jumped up with a kick of her legs and asked curiously, Long Huan brought people over so quickly? This was truly beyond her expectations. Long Qian actually didn't make things difficult for him? As expected, he was her biological grandson and treated him differently. No. Rong chuckled and waved his hand. It's His Majesty, His Majesty. His Majesty is here. Arbor was taken aback, and then her eyes lit up. Duan Yu is here? Where is he? Quickly bring me there. I say, he's really dawdling. He's been drifting on the sea for so long and only found this place now. Don't tell me he got lost. Arbor grumbled. She had only taken a few steps when she saw a pair of tall and slender men walking over from the stone wall. One was wearing plain clothes and the other was wearing an ink-colored robe. The sleeves of their clothes fluttered in the wind. Both of them were handsome, elegant, and magnificent. Both of them had outstanding appearances. The little stoic was baffled and dazed for a moment. An indignant little person suddenly jumped out of her heart with a whoosh. Holding a peachwood talisman, she knocked on the two people's heads and chased after them. I'll let you go out as a pair, I'll let you be peerless in your generation, I'll let you flirt with me every day and make me feel ashamed of my inferiority. I'll beat you guys to death. Rong, who was standing next to the stoic face, inexplicably felt a chill pass by him and rubbed his arms in bewilderment. It was a bit strange. Why did the atmosphere suddenly turn cold? Jojo. Duan Yu's eyes lit up, and he flew in front of her in a flash. His handsome face with a brilliant smile swayed back and forth in front of her. Jojo, did you miss me? It's fine if you don't miss me. I missed you a lot. This guy continued to talk to himself. Have you been busy on the island recently? Why are you in a daze and not saying anything? Mo Lien also arrived and glanced at him with a chuckle. Can't you tell that Jojo doesn't want to talk to you? Impossible. Jojo definitely wouldn't be so heartless. Jojo? Duan Yu rolled his eyes at Mo Lien. When he turned his head, he noticed that the little stoic's gaze followed the two of them back and forth with an odd expression on her face. Jojo, why aren't you saying anything? Are you too happy to see the real person? Duan Yu asked with a grin, his gaze suddenly landing on her hand. What's this? Jojo, you're so nice. Is this the storage talisman you're giving me? Seeing that she didn't react, he took the talisman from her hands. He was so fast that Arbor didn't even have time to react. In the blink of an eye, the talisman was in the man's hand. Hey wait. Arbor came back to his senses and quickly reached out to stop him. Duan Yu blinked aggrievedly and huffed. Oh, so it's not for me. Then it's for him. He slapped the talisman onto Mo Lien's chest with a flip of his hand. His hand was so fast that she couldn't refuse him in time at that moment. The second weight of Arbor's weight had just escaped from his mouth. He then weakly quieted down, his eyes bulging as he looked at the comical scene before him. Heavens, the ignorant were the most fearless. Duan Yu, this guy, was seriously cheating. Mo Lien looked down and saw that the talisman had turned into a streak of light, and talisman energy rapidly seeped into his body. Unable to reverse the situation, Xiao Mu massaged her forehead. Chapter 45-56. This guy looked down at his own palm in confusion, then glanced at the expressionless Mo Lien. What's going on? Why did he feel like there was something wrong with that talisman? This guy didn't know what kind of troublesome thing he had done as soon as he arrived. He looked innocently at Arbor and saw that the little guy's expression was a bit indescribable. Jojo, what talisman is that? He had swiftly slapped the talisman onto Mo Lien's body just now, but that guy didn't seem to have any reaction at all. Arbor wanted to say something but hesitated. His eyes were filled with complicated and indescribable emotions. He glanced at Duan Yu before swiftly bouncing toward Mo Lien. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. Husband would definitely be angered to death when he woke up. Husband would definitely fight it out with Duan Yu. If these two fought, it was unknown who would win. There was an 80% chance that both sides would be injured, and they might even perish together. When the little stoic thought of this, she blinked and repeatedly brushed aside this frightening thought in her mind. To protect my husband, I must quickly transfer husband to Fish Orchid Planet and isolate him from the rest of the world. He can't run around as he pleases and use that devastatingly handsome face to wantonly bring disaster to others. The rapid cultivation talisman ignored cultivation realm and had a 100% chance of being hit after activating it. Within 15 days, he would lose his sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. He would lose all emotions, including joy, anger, worry, thinking, sorrow, fear, and alarm. He would transform into a cultivation machine and only know how to cultivate with all his might. Poor husband, how could he be tricked by Duan Yu? Arbor reflexively reached out to pinch his husband's icy handsome face and hastily flashed into the star domain with him. Husband, don't be scared. The little stoic pacified the man. This rapid cultivation talisman isn't harmful to the body. You'll be like an idiot for the next 15 days. You won't be able to see or hear anything. You won't be able to do anything except cultivate. This way, this guy's cultivation realm would definitely be properly stabilized. She raised her hand to touch his face, a bit puzzled by his reaction. Her husband looked too much like a block of wood right now. 15 days isn't long, but it isn't short either. This rapid cultivation talisman will allow you to fully immerse yourself in your cultivation. The effect is pretty good. The 15 days mentioned here was the actual time in the outside world. This meant that if Jojo left her husband alone on the fish orchid planet to cultivate, after 12 times the flow of time her husband would probably be able to spend half a year peacefully on the small island of fish orchid planet. Although compared to the 2 years he needed to completely stabilize his realm, this half a year was really nothing. But at the very least, it was better than nothing. Let's take it step by step. Seeing Arbor dragging Mo Lien back to the star domain, Duan Yu naturally followed in a hurry. He finally realized that there was something unusual about the Prince Mo in front of him. What happened to him? Duan Yu curiously stared at a certain someone who was standing upright and unmoving in front of him and poked his shoulder. Hey, Jojo, what's up with this guy? From just now until now, it has been stuck here like a piece of wood. To be honest, Arbor also found it very strange. She only knew that after being hit by the rapid cultivation talisman, a portion of her memory should be missing. She didn't know if her husband had also entered a memoryless state right now. Once he woke up, he would probably forget everything that had happened. She also didn't know how she would react after being hit by the talisman. In any case, in her opinion, her husband's situation was quite strange. Chapter 45-57. Why didn't he have any reaction at all? Logically speaking, after being hit by this kind of rapid cultivation curse, his mind should be filled with the goal of cultivation and automatically activate his instinct to explore the divine realm. He should run to wherever divine and holy power were rich. Why was it that he was still in a daze even after half an hour had passed since he was hit? Jojo! Duan Yu called her softly and withdrew his playful expression. He knitted his brows and asked, "Is there really a problem with that talisman?" Arbor shook her head. "It's not a big problem. It's just a cultivation talisman." Duan Yu nodded and pointed at Mo Lien, asking, "Then what about him?" She then saw Crown Prince Mo abruptly topple backwards, facing the sky. The little stoic hastily reached out to grab him, but to her surprise, his body was as heavy as a solid weight. The little stoic couldn't pull him back in time and fell to the ground with him. She rolled onto his chest and smashed her small face into his body. Duan Yu, did he come all the way here just to eat a mouthful of dog food? What the hell was this? Mo Lien, this fool, was definitely purposely showing off in front of him. Arbor was completely speechless. She raised her small head slightly and observed her husband's expressionless handsome face up close with her beady black eyes. What was going on? What was with her husband's closed eyes and sleepwalking expression? Was he also like this when she was cultivating charms at a moderate speed back then? Just as Qiao Mu wanted to crawl up, she discovered that he had encircled his arms around her, and her soft and small body was pressed down by him again. Arbor was instantly speechless and glanced at Duan Yu, who was standing on the side. She kept hinting with her eyes, "What are you spacing out for? Hurry and pull me up." It had to be said that Duan Yu immediately understood Sir Jojo's small gaze. At the same time that he pulled her up, he also pulled out Prince Mo, who was as heavy as a weight. Wasn't this body too freaking heavy? Was it because gravity had been injected into his meridians? Husband! Jojo cautiously called out to him. Then, she was shocked to find that there seemed to be surging divine power gathering around her husband. This as he had already entered a state of cultivation. This guy was really a scammer. Mr. Jojo had thought that Emolien was not in the right state of mind yet. Who would have thought that the moment the talisman was activated, he had already entered the state of cultivation? Arbor felt that if it wasn't for the fact that it often blocked other people's 5 senses, 7 emotions, 6 desires, and even memories, it would have been a long time ago. Strictly speaking, this talisman was actually quite helpful in making progress. After using this kind of rapid cultivation talisman, the increase in cultivation speed would vary from person to person. If one's luck was good, their cultivation speed might increase by 100 times or more. Thinking about it, a day of cultivation was equivalent to 100 days of cultivation for an ordinary person. It was obvious that the cultivation speed was incomparable. Jojo-sama was really too worried about her husband. Why isn't this guy letting go? Arbor glanced at her husband in confusion. To be precise, her gaze should be sweeping toward Emolien's hand that was tightly gripping her. Emolien's slender and strong fingers clasped Arbor's wrist, causing her to be unable to move at all. Wasn't it baffling? If you want to cultivate, then go cultivate properly. Why are you holding on to her and not letting go? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.